Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Explore together.
Welcome back for the 15th installment of our Extra Lore series, recorded live on June 7th, 2017 on twitch.tv. Big shout out to the live chat here. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. Our topic for this chat is going to be an exploration of the Titanfall series. This is your host, Blue Crew 86. Alongside me, we have the man who has actually gone out of his way to play some of tonight's game, Justin Sane 0516. Justin, what are your thoughts on the topic?
I really like Titanfall. I get a very strong. It's almost like I get a strong Halo vibe from the like the colonies and the frontier and the IMC and everything. And also, for some reason, it makes me think of Firefly. So I enjoy being a brown coat.
Serenity.
Yes, Serenity now. But yes, yeah, I really enjoyed. I'm not gonna lie, I played just like a little bit of Titanfall 2 multiplayer, Titanfall 1 multiplayer. Didn't really get into it because that was right when I was just getting into Destiny. But Titanfall 2 I enjoy immensely, and the revamped story mode is kind of awesome.
Yeah,
like,
we talked a little
game.
bit. We were talking a little bit about that before the show. Well, Mel is working while we're here playing around, so be sure to let her know that we miss her over on Twitter at The Wind of the Stars. And then we also have our resident Gunter extraordinaire, Green-Eyed Music Lover. Green, hope you're ready for the shenanigans. Do you have any thoughts on tonight's topic?
I've watched a lot of Mr. Fruit playing it. I've played maybe 10 minutes of the game, but I've watched quite a bit of YouTube on it, so I don't know if I know any lore behind it, but it's fun to watch.
That's always better than not having anything. So good. And of course, for these topics, we always want to make sure we have someone who is well versed in the lore. So with all that being said, I want to welcome Taylor B. Taylor, how is everything going for you tonight?
Oh, I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
We know you guys. We were talking a little bit. Taylor made sure that he was going to be here. He's got an early morning tomorrow, so we really appreciate you carving out some time to come hang out with us. Can you let us know where people can find you and really just what got you into the Titanfall series?
Oh yeah, they can find me, of course, in the Focus Fire Chat Discord. I'm typically in Spinfoil Lounge, but I'm definitely in the what is it, the Fight Club.
Okay. Yeah.
The food
fight my food all the time.
Yes. Making me jealous most of the time.
But yeah, I'm sporadically on Twitter at this is Red Leader, Litre.
Nice. We approve.
Thank you. But yeah, what got me into Titanfall is when I was a little kid, I was really into Gundam and all the other big mecha anime things. So one of my favorite games growing up was back on the Dreamcast, and that was a Gundam Rise from the Ashes 0079, which is one of the first ones that I ever played where you were kind of like in the cockpit of the mobile suit.
Nice.
While you're moving around. And then when Titanfall came out, I wasn't on Xbox, so I was kind of let down that I didn't get to play it. But when it came over with the second game to PS4, I was definitely excited and got into, not too long ago, it was one of the times it was on sale. I decided to pick it up. But yeah, no, it's definitely become one of my favorite games.
Nice. Yeah, I know. Well, it's actually going to be one of my first questions to you guys is the distinction of the mechs. Like, let's run through the intro real quick, and then I want to get into that because that's one of my biggest questions actually about Titanfall is the mechs, not just the story, which I've played some of Titanfall 1. I have not played. I got to play the demo that they had at E3 last year for Titanfall 2. But that wasn't like a story mission. It was just the PvP aspect. So like there wasn't like any really big story reveal on it. And and it felt a lot. I mean, it felt very similar to Titanfall 1 in the sense of like the base gameplay and stuff. Like, plus it was on a PS4, which was like, I don't even know what to do with my hands on a PS4 controller. I was like, this is really weird. So yeah, I definitely the mech is like the biggest thing for me. It's like, is it like a Gundam? Is it like the Zoids? Like, what is that?
That's a rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, no, I can imagine. Well, because the thing is like there's multiple types of mechs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, let's run through the intro real quick, and then we'll jump into a brief summary of the story, and then we'll start looking at the different options for rabbit holes that we can kind of stick our head into. Before we start off the chat, however, I do have a few housekeeping notes. In our last Extra Lore episode, we discussed the Forgotten Realms. If you missed that and have any interest in hearing our thoughts, please be sure to check out www.focusfirechat.com for archives of all previous chats, as well as links to our various other pages. If you don't mind, please give us some feedback on iTunes to let us know how we're doing and to help us continue to grow. As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a cross-community gathering where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. With the Extra Lore series, we delve into a game series other than Destiny for a full month, giving the group a chance to get a feel for the other games that our community loves to play. We try to stream a recap of this month-long conversation in the first week of each month. Please note that next month, due to the GuardianCon event, we will be recording it the second week instead of the first. Please be sure to also give some support to the other podcasts in the Guardian Radio Network found at theguardiansofdestiny.com. These include Guardian Radio, the official podcast for the Guardians of Destiny, Guardian 1, Ghost and Echoes, which also has the Destiny Audio Grimoire, and the network's newest edition, a non-Destiny podcast, Paragon Radio. Our next Extra Lore is going to be another discussion on the lore of Halo. Be sure to jump into the Discord server and weigh in on that. With all that being said, Taylor, would you kindly start us off with a general summary on the information that we have about Titanfall?
All right. Well, like something you need to know going into Titanfall, I think, is the general outlay of the universe. So what that is in the future, mankind has constantly grown and expanded much beyond the population of just the planet. They've expanded into colonizing other planets and outside of the solar system. So at the same time that mankind is expanding outside of the solar system, population is like rapidly expanding with it. So then you get to the frontier, which is kind of like the edge of the galaxy, let's say. Solar system, which is the solar system, Earth that we inhabit, as you can like practically get. So along with this expansion, inner system companies and firms such as Hammond Engineering, they develop alongside the expansion. So what started as Hammond Engineering eventually becomes the Interstellar Manufacturing Corporation. As mankind is expanding, you kind of have this situation that's, you might recognize it from other sci-fi material. So you have these frontier settlers who are going out there and trying to settle these new places and sort of state their claim. And then you have this corporation that has, should I say here, that has sort of a blessing and contract from the inner core system to use these resources to help facilitate the inner cluster.
So that goes back into kind of, Justin, what you were saying with the Firefly feel. And actually, a lot of the Halo
also,
feel. I mean, pretty much any of because
pretty much frontier equals outer colonies.
Yeah, because I was about to say the Expanse. I don't know if you guys have seen the Expanse, but that TV show kind of deals with it's not as expansive as Titanfall, Yeah, I was like, I realized that what I was saying, and I just went with it. It's not as like as big as Titanfall is with regards to like the geographic, or not the geographic, but like the space. But like the Expanse is kind of a giant chess game between two empires and then the asteroid belt where all the resources are. So it's kind of like, it feels like that is a very popular science fiction trope being used recently, is this like the outer colonies versus the inner colonies.
No.
You know that's how it's going to happen too, though. That's how
I knew this was going to happen.
Well, I'm just saying, like this is the model. It's how terrestrial colonization happened. I mean, there's a reason for this. You can't, completely decentralize your, everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's
massive.
It's going to repeat itself.
Yes. Well, and I mean, in to a degree, historically, it makes sense. You have an empire through which colonization efforts are being pushed to the frontier and there is always going to be stress between the colonist and the individuals who started out calling the shots but aren't on the front line because they're enjoying the comfort of home. So, I mean, that is there's a reason it is common. I completely agree with that.
But basically, the frontier colonies serve at the pleasure of the inner core. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, there were not many problems from that, but that kind of changes. Why don't you tell us why that changes, Taylor?
You got it. So as things expand, the IMC, that Interstellar Manufacturing Corporation mentioned earlier, that sort of grew from Hammond Engineering Robotics over a couple centuries. Like, the expansion wasn't like instant, but they basically got a contract that gave them eminent domain over the frontier resources and settlements. So what they would do is they would show up. We're basically taking all your resources. You guys can relocate through us, or we can just kill you if you resist.
Oh, that never goes over well. It started a whole war. The initial Titan War was actually really one-sided because the IMC were the only people with Titans.
Sounds like it's unfair.
It was a little one-sided. So they were the only people with Titans in this conflict. There wasn't really quite an organized militia at that point, as you'll find like in the first game and the second game. Sort of like ragtag groups of people who were like trying to stand up to their oppressors. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it was very heavy-handed. There weren't sort of equivalent machinery, artillery, or weapon that the Frontiers people had at that time.
Did they have any pilots? Because I know that's like one of the big things with the mechs themselves, is that they have to have a pilot that's trained for it. But did any of the frontiermen, were they like formally pilots at all, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
In the Titan Wars, they're not quite pilots yet, but a lot of the things that would make someone a candidate in the the conflict of the first game, where both sides had Titans. Mm-hmm. Would be drawn from this conflict. So it's about like being hypermobile, moving around, and in the Titanfall universe, like far in the future, everyone, at least that's a player character, is hopped up on nanites and all kinds of future tech. So that's how you have things explained like you have jump jets on your hips, which I actually really appreciated, as opposed to like the Star Wars on your back. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't burn your backside. It actually just like boosts your center of gravity. That's
sense.
the big, Yeah, that's what I would say is the Titan Wars definitely define the criteria for what would become a pilot for the militia, but they weren't pilots as such because the Frontier side didn't have any sort of equivalent machinery and hadn't stolen any IMC Titans yet.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was like pilots from the IMC that were out there originally that got stranded or lost their mechs or anything like that.
Well, the transition for the first Titanfall conflict is there's they get a hold of either abandoned or a sort of derelict, and this company Kodai, which is sort of the technological supplier to the militia, refurbished and sort of redesigned the Titans for their use.
So it almost became a corporate war in the sense also of inner-outer conflict. You have corporation sponsors now, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, it reminds me actually of if anyone's familiar with like the Kodi Fire Stick, that thing you can kind of order online. Yeah.
Yep. I know. I was like, so they're using the hardware of someone else to promote their own.
Exactly. Like that's sort of how I view Kodai in the Titanfall universe.
That makes actually a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, like there could be some corporate espionage involved. It's not alluded to in the story in any way.
But it's amazing. They suddenly know how to reprogram an operating system that is not theirs. Oh man, that's interesting too, because that also explains, like, you know, how it goes from a Titan slaughter to a Titan war, and it kind of felt like a somewhat quick, you know, turnaround too. I don't know if that's how it was meant to be in the game, but I remember the little bit, like, so my biggest complaint with Titanfall, and my understanding is they've repaired this in Titanfall 2, but my biggest complaint in Titanfall was like it was 100% multiplayer, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that, but there was no guiding on like what exactly you were fighting for. So, like, for a lot of us, it was just like, oh, we're going to jump in, and there was, like, you know, like a 15-second clip. Really well done cinematic at the beginning of the mission. And then, like, you have, like, the whole, like, jumping off the ship, and you're either, you know, team blue or team red. And and, like, there was chatter going on in the background, but because it was PvP, if you stopped to try to listen to what was going on, you got killed. Which
absolutely
basically very quickly teaches you, don't pay attention to what they're yelling unless it's like actually like you need to get to point such and such. If they're just talking, just tune it out. Which is really, really sad because it felt like, well, and then also the missions were like never played in order. I remember, like, when I first started,
that is a problem.
Oh, it was very confusing. I got it when it was a game for gold, right? And it was a deal for gold or something. We got it for like $2. My brother Kung Fu and I got it, and we started playing it. The very first mission that we played was the last mission, which I'm like, I have no idea, but someone important just died, and everyone's really pissed off, and I have no idea.
James McCallan feels.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know why everyone's crying, but apparently he was really important to something, and so I don't even know who it was, but yeah, it was for a storytelling point, it was a very disjointed presentation. Titanfall 2, my understanding, and Justin, I think you kind of touched on this. I'll let you take this one. Titanfall 2, the storytelling is like 180 degrees. Like, it's completely different and much better. My understanding is on that. Is that right, Justin?
Yeah. It's okay. Before I move on to Titanfall 2, but Titanfall 1 was a novel idea.
Yeah. Yes. I agree.
It was a novel idea. It hadn't really been done before. Definitely needed some refining, and I think more than anything, it needed more missions, and it also needed some sort of system where the first time you ran them, you had to run them in order, and then after that, you could just do them in whatever order, like they'd queue randomly for you.
Mm-hmm.
But those are my only problems with Titanfall 1. I think it's actually really cool, and I didn't get to play through every single mission on both sides, but I believe there were separate endings and
Yes.
kind of you got both sides of the story based on whether you were a militia or IMC. I think that is an awesome idea. I would really like to see a game like Overwatch implement a similar, storytelling like scheme. I think it'd be amazing. So it was a good idea.
Cool.
It just didn't really materialize the way they wanted. Titanfall 2 is whole different ball game, full blown cinematic cutscene and dialogue driven story mode, which is, I hate to admit, is pretty much the majority of what I've played in Titanfall 2. I hadn't got a chance to play much multiplayer. There's almost too much going on for me to play a whole lot of Titanfall 2 multiplayer. There's way too many things. Like I need a gun and a grenade and a melee. And yeah, I can jump too. Movement abilities are almost pushing it. So yeah, go ahead.
Someone also coming from Destiny, like switching over into Titanfall 2, which is like Destiny, it's definitely rough because the time to kill is just like, it's not even in half. It's like micro what I'm used to. So yeah, no, high mobility and all that. I find that like my play style ends up being what most people complain about on the Titanfall Reddit. But
you're just a flanker, huh?
I'm that scrub who's always on that weird roof who's shooting you on the other roof with the G2 from across the way.
But
I like the talking about the mobility, and you kind of mentioned this with like the hip thrusters, the wall run, like the way you could do that. It opened maps. It's like with Halo 5 and Clamor, like it opens up where you can get on maps, and it just changes the entire dynamic of how fights, they're now vertical, they're not just horizontal. You have to be paying attention to up above as much as you are in front of you.
And it also makes it to where, when you play Halo 5, there's the route up here by the box where people clamber up.
Right.
There's the route up the ramp where people run up, and then there's like maybe one more. So there's so few routes that you can actually know them all. In Titanfall, I guess if you played enough, you could know every route and be so familiar with every route that you could anticipate all these things. But for the average player in Titanfall, like, you'll get killed and go, didn't know you could do that.
I tell you what, though, at least you get to watch the replay of how they did it. Like, you can be like, that's how I died.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
The kill cams.
But yeah, I don't know if this is putting the cart before the horse, but one of the things Titanfall 2 nailed that I think, not to criticize, but I think Destiny is, if you go back to vanilla or even the later iterations, kind of fell flat on. Having your NPC buddy, drive story dialogue effectively was something Titanfall 2 excelled at. BT is an amazing partner. he's an amazing little voice in your ear throughout that campaign. So going off that, the NPC.
So okay, let's use that then. Who is BT?
BT.
All right,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Like jumping ahead to Titanfall 2. BT is the sort of the amalgamation. He's the first Vanguard class Titan. So he's the first militia Titan that was manufactured and developed by the militia. They're not refurbishing IMC Titans. They're not stealing other people's technology. They're developing their own technology.
Okay.
And what's really special about the Vanguard class is they can kind of they kind of have like it's almost like a plasticity. So like they can be on the battlefield, they can pick up another Titan's weapon, and they can recustomize their loadout.
Oh,
so it's very versatile. They're designed to be drop behind enemy lines for survival. Like they're sort of like the creme de la creme in the Titan universe.
So they're like chameleons, basically.
All the way, and that's a big part of the campaign mode too. Like as in Titanfall 2, as you work your way through and you come to different points in the story, you encounter different loadouts that are kind of designed to help you navigate your way through the next part of the campaign. And what's really ingenious about the campaign in Titanfall 2 is it really sets you up to play all of the multiplayer. Like you're kind of ready to play all the different multiplayer modes by the time you come out of the campaign mode.
That's really nice too.
And that's if you keep switching loadouts and you don't just run tone through the whole story. Which I was like, what's this? It shoots flames? This sucks. I want it done.
Dude, I was that goober running brute from like when I first got it, just running through, which isn't even a Titan that you can get in the regular game, but that's a whole other story. Like,
so going off that, so BT is the kind of the militias. Well, the militias finally they custom build their own Titan in response to, what is it? The IMC? Is that,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they've by Titanfall 2 they've built BT, and they've refurbished Titan technology to the point to where they can start developing their own. So BT is a Vanguard class Titan. They're their new first line of Titans. In I think the opening, not the opening cinematic, but the opening mission that you do in the Titanfall 2 campaign, Lastimosa, who's kind of like Jack Cooper, your main character's mentor, sort of goes into how they don't have to depend on salvaging IMC material anymore.
Okay. And I know the green, you have, that's where I was actually going next. So like this Titan, which is the they seem to have AIs to a degree. Like there is a form of artificial intelligence in the Titans in general, because I mean, just like the concept of piloting such a giant mech, you would think that there would be a base, operating system of some kind. Does BT's AI, is that more sophisticated than the base AI? Does it actually have I mean, Justin, you said that there's almost an NPC personality. So does BT have its own personality? How does that?
Yes. Yeah. BT is it's actually BT 7274. Am I getting the numbers mixed up? 7274. So, that's the Titans designation. But when I say BT, I'm really talking about the AI personality, the onboard intelligence that's inside.
Okay.
It's hard to separate the two, but
well, can they be separated?
Actually, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah,
you
but
did that at one point in the story.
Yes. But it's much more than just a it's much more than just like a guidance and logistical, computing artificial intelligence. This is very much a learning artificial intelligence, or smart AI, as we've, think Cortana to the Master Chief. That's what BT is to Jack Cooper in Titanfall 2. Not that BT is as sophisticated as Cortana, but as far as their relationship.
I think that's a really good comparison. I was also going to say, if anyone had played Mass Effect Andromeda, in that game, how it sort of is paired to learn with the pilot, like the connection's very deep to the pilots, to where like they kind of both like learn together.
Right.
Yeah, but one of the funniest parts of BT is his delivery. So BT hasn't figured out things like sarcasm and figurative speech and things like that. So there'll be times where Jack will say something like, "Oh, BT, long time no see," and BT will say, "Well, actually, I had access to your camera feed the whole time, so I saw you in action. Good job." Or it's
BT Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy?
Nothing
he's
goes over
almost
my
there.
head.
I would catch it.
He's almost there. He's what is it? At one point, Jack asks BT if he's in love with something when he's mind reading it, and BT goes all like analytical and he's like, "Well, like if love is X and Y, I am 50% in love."
Yeah, it's like love is a mix of what was it? Admiration, loyalty, and all these other attributes. So, asking if he's in love with a loadout. It's pretty funny.
So yeah, the Titans are definitely they're sort of a version of like modern tank technology and sort of our modern fledgling like exoskeleton technology. So speaking of what you were kind of mentioning before we started about mechs, like Titans are actually controlled 100% by your mind.
Oh.
It's like you're moving your own body while you're doing it because of the connection that they have to the pilot. So like, whereas in Gundam, like they have joysticks and they're actually
right. This is more the
gesticulating and controlling everything.
This is more like the Iron Man after Extremis upgrade.
Absolutely. So it's very much in a couple of the cutscenes, especially in the second Titanfall, like someone will be talking at you from their Titan. And their hatch will be open because they're trying to like rouse the troops or whatever, and they'll gesticulate, and the Titan will gesticulate with them. So like two fists are raised when they're trying to be like, yeah.
Is there a way that they port themselves to it? Is there a neural transmitter? Or are they plugging in like Matrix or
a neural link between the pilot and the Titan? Not unlike what you see when you watch. Have you seen Pacific Rim?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of similar. If you've ever noticed the Titans, none of them have windows on the front because that would be very dangerous for the pilot. So
no,
yeah, basically when you jump in there and link up with your Titan, the view out of the what would be the windshield is projected in front of you via neural link. Do I have that right, Taylor?
Oh, you have that absolutely right. It's actually, if as more familiar with the second game, if you remember that sort of like first mission where Lastimosa is training you, you're in one of these pods, and these pods have like, if you look into it, it almost looks like a like an embroidered pillow with like the buttons that go down in on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like going all around the room, and like each of those are a data point to where like they can project this image onto the screen. So it's very immersive. I that's really done through like nanotechnology as opposed to like direct links like a la the Matrix.
Yeah.
But like for the link to establish like that takes some time, and that takes some sort of wear and tear on the pilot for it to happen. Like you might pass out while that's going on.
That sounds fun.
But essentially, it's augmented reality.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Pokemon Go gives us Titans.
Yes.
So the next question when we're talking about AI is law of robotics, right? Asimov's law of robotics. Is there something similar to that within Titanfall?
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Absolutely. There's the 3 protocols.
Okay.
So and I'm actually not sure if this is strictly the militia or the IMC, because I could see the IMC having some different values, which I can get into here in a minute. But the first protocol is establish a link with the pilot. So that's their prime directive. If Titan doesn't have a pilot, it's going to look for a pilot. Is how I take that, being its primary directive there. Protocol 2 is execute the mission, no matter the cost. So how that should be viewed is the Titan isn't going to necessarily sacrifice like everything in its sister in its way to accomplish the goal you give it, but it will most certainly sacrifice itself.
Okay.
And that brings me to Protocol 3, protect the pilot. So the pilot is not is not a part of the no matter the cost of Protocol 2, as I read that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was about to say, doesn't that negate the or the second one? So okay.
Yeah. On that flow chart, there's an arrow around Protocol 2.
Absolutely. And I always wonder if like IMC Titans maybe have like a slightly different thing, because I could see them having the IMC sort of viewing IMC property as more valuable than the pilot.
Oh God.
Is the pilot considered part of the IMC property, though?
We can get this in
Probably
a
the way
second. There are these things called simulacrums, sort of these like little like robot guys. They don't look too dissimilar from Sweeperbot, actually, from Destiny.
Oh,
But,
the Spectres?
Yeah, the Spectres, but it's the smarter ones. So like in Titanfall 2, it'll be like Ash. But if you think back to Titanfall 1, it'll be like Spyglass.
Yeah.
It looks way more similar to a Spectre.
Ash is
they
is pain in the butt.
Oh yeah, she can be. But there's two different kinds of those though. So there's a transferred consciousness,
No,
intelligence.
Taylor, you dropped a little bit there.
He transferred his consciousness.
Yes, he did.
Sorry
Good timing.
about that. I was going to say there's a total artificial consciousness. So in
Like a cloud,
Spyglass-
right? Like, isn't Spyglass like a giant cloud?
Yeah, he's the entire IMC infrastructure.
Oh, cool.
He's an intelligence that was like brought out of their entire infrastructure. So all of his bodies are considered disposable because you won't actually lose Spyglass.
That's disturbing.
Okay.
He's the Vex. The Vex mind.
Well, actually, he's more like Ultron.
Yeah. Okay.
So like the physical manifestation of him is only one node, but the actual intelligence aspect is spread out. So if the physical manifestation gets destroyed, it's just like, oh, I lost the computer. I didn't actually lose the database. I just need to find a new computer.
Yeah, exactly. But there's the other type too. So you never really find it out in the story. But like for those who are familiar with Titanfall 2, and we'll get into this later. But Ash is one of the adversaries, apex predators, people you fight in Titanfall 2. She is a simulacrum also, but she isn't sure of her history. So there's a good chance she may be a human into a simulacrum as opposed to a totally artificial simulacrum like a Spyglass.
Oh wow. Oh, because they okay.
And hers was one of the hardest boss battles for me. That's the Bob the Builder battle, correct?
I was gonna say,
Bob.
is she second only to Viper?
Yes. It is literally the most annoying. It's actually one of the coolest video game levels I think I've ever played. You spend the whole level going through this assembly line, and you're trying to figure out the whole time what they're making. Towards like the middle of the assembly line, it becomes evident that you're on this little platform that a house is being built on. Like everything with furniture and dummy people inside it and everything. And you're like, what are we doing? Making model homes? And then finally at the end, spoiler alert, at the end, all of these little platforms with houses and structures and fake people and get put up onto this test platform, and it's a battle simulator.
Yeah.
And they queue up buildings and stuff and then simulate battle, and you have to fight this person on it. And the exploding spiders
that
will
sounds
follow you.
amazing.
It is. Yeah. It is. The exploding spiders and the apex predator titans will follow you in the buildings.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that sort of sets up the universe. If you guys are cool, like I can go into the story of the first game, which isn't as expansive as the second game.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Lead on.
All right. So in the first mission of Titanfall, it's the refueling station. So the first fleet of the militia is like really parched for fuel. The militia is really small at this time. There may be separate factions if you're familiar with the current sort of Star Wars extra universe. like Star Wars Rebels and that like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like factions who aren't necessarily aware of each other. It's sort of that kind of setup. You're the first militia fleet, but you don't know how quite big the militia is. It's all very vague from your point of view. So you're going to take some fuel from the nearest IMC station. And that is in the Yuma system. And so the IMC kind of gets, I'm sort of going from both perspectives here, because in the first game you could be on the militia side or you could be on the IMC side. So sorry if it seems like I'm going back and forth. But basically you're in the Yuma system, mostly automated turrets on this IMC station. And Captain Dunham, the militia squadron leader, leads the first squadron against 3 locations simultaneously. So he's trying to overwhelm the location to spread their defenses thin so that they can make off with the fuel. So when the mission begins, the IMC side pilots are led by Sergeant Blisk, who is a South African mercenary, and if you played the second game, yeah, you definitely know who he is.
I like that description, Justin.
He's a big butthead.
I love how Justin could not keep it in. Butthead. Continue. Sorry.
He's your leader, and he's always been a mercenary. He's always been privately employed. He's never actually been a part of the IMC proper. If you're on the militia side, you're led by Sarah, who is also in the second game. Background is sort of she's someone who grew up on the frontier who lost her parents to an IMC raid. One of those times where the IMC would show up on the frontier and be like, "Hey, we want all your resources. We can either relocate you or kill you if you resist." One of those type of situations. And Chang Bish Lork, who's a mercenary, but he has a little more scruples than the apex predators, so he's working with the militia. And their plan is to hack the power feeds in the turrets from the IMC, fueling stations to allow their fleets to escape after they come in to refuel. It's very similar to Zone Control in Destiny. If you guys ever played that, so you would go in, you would have one person hack a terminal or hold a point, and you would basically just try to control that location from enemies coming from either side. Now, no matter who wins, the militia suffers very heavy casualties in the raid. If the militia wins, Blisk really complains that you didn't shoot down their ships.
Oh God. Okay.
As you escape, on the militia side, also Sarah and Blisk argue as to whether or not the losses were worth the refueling. So as you go through the first game, they're all multiplayer maps, as we mentioned earlier. So there's degrees of canon, but they're all kind of no matter what you do, no matter what. So the second mission is on the colony. So it's right after the events of the first mission, and the IMC sends out probes to track the militia's locations. One of these probes locates the previously unknown to the IMC colony on Troy. Graves, who's the commander of the IMC, gives orders units under Bliss command to the colony in search of militia, figuring they had to have gone there. They only find civilians. So what Blisk decides to do, being the gem that he is just to start killing civilians and wreaking havoc on the colony. To try and minds. Yeah, he's just well, the intel says they had to be here, so I'm just going to kill people till they come out. Is basically his MO.
That always ends up working. He's out in your favor.
He's just walking around, knocking on doors, going, "Sarah Connor."
Oh God! Oh God!
And I want to say canon. This is the first time Spectre units are deployed. So he's got prototype robot buddies to fight with him.
Yeah, battle droids.
machine guns that shoot like lasers at you. It's really
Now, when you said Graves, that is, what was his rank at that point? Is it lieutenant or colonel?
because it's like Space Navy. So he's I want to say he's vice admiral and only actually in charge of this quadrant of space.
I thought, was he not Forward Frontier Command? Like he had some kind of weird acronym title. It was pretty much just Frontier Forward Command or something like that.
Because he's a I guess what used to be like a rear admiral, vice admiral. He's in charge of his school. So I'm thinking like battalion. He's in charge of his like larger group in that quadrant.
And among the group he's got control of in this first iteration of Titanfall is James McCallan, who becomes a pretty important figure.
That's actually in the past.
Yes, it's Titanfall.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, McCallan's already broken from.
Yeah,
from IMC.
He broke after the Titan Wars.
I got you. So
that kind of becomes more apparent in actually the next mission. But you're not. It's good you bring it up now, just to kind of level out the story of the character here. But yeah, James McCallan, becomes a more important player later in the story, used to be under his command.
Did he switch sides?
McCallan ends up defecting, but he'll eventually switch sides to the militia. Like he ends up just kind of going AWOL. But yeah. So the colony sends out a distress signal because Blisk is just kind of like murdering people indiscriminately.
So Butthead, yeah, got it.
Yeah, super Butthead. And the militia come running. So it's this is an attrition type game, type mission, which in Titanfall attrition is really, really cool if you ask me. So you have player characters, you have 6v6, which isn't unlike a lot of game modes in Destiny right now, 6v6, but you each have AI units who are on your side. So there can be up to like 50 units on the map at any given time.
Okay.
It sounds like it can be a little chaosy, but the AI is not too smart. But it's really fun. You're right. You get points for killing AI units. You get more points for killing players, and even more if you take down their Titan.
Oh, okay. I've played that one. Yeah.
It's not unlike Warzone Firefight in Halo 5.
Yeah. Well, and
you've got some AI units. You've got some real player units. If you're like my son, you just run around killing specters the whole time.
Has he tried hacking them?
No, I don't think he has. Is that with the knife?
Yeah. So when you run up on a specter in attrition, if you just hold melee when you're behind them, he'll stick the knife in the back, but he'll like hack them like he does in the campaign mode. And you'll actually, in the campaign mode, you only get one, but in like multiplayer, you'll get the whole group of them. They're on your team now.
Ooh.
That's cool.
Friend punch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that.
So in
the next mission, is that where we're at, the final mission, or the
we're almost there. I was going to finish out this one real quick because no matter who you choose, this is the mission you actually first get message from James McCallan, as the militia ends up calling him, who he basically like yells at you no matter whether you're militia or IMC for like wrecking up the frontier.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah. So James McCallan is a highly decorated soldier in the Titan Wars, you find out now, is placed about 20 years before the events of Titanfall 1. Good friend of Vice Admiral Graves. And he led the mutiny above the flagship of the IMC called the Odyssey at the end of the Titan Wars conflict. So he could have gotten put down by Graves at this time, but Graves kind of like let him go and escape with his own people. and he escaped with the Odyssey, and Graves isn't sure what happened. But if you're on the IMC side, you interact with Spyglass, who we mentioned earlier. And Spyglass kind of like takes command of these specters that Blisk has brought with you, and he's not having any of sass on the battlefield. So where am I here? All right. When the battle concludes, no matter who wins, McAllen reveals that most of the colony's citizens are actually on board the Odyssey, that flagship that at the end of the Titan Wars, and they haven't really been killed by the fighting, or at least for the most part. He also includes that he'll be throwing in with the militia, and then he bugs out with all the people. So depending on if you won or lost in either case, of the map, like bug out, like you won. It's kind of like an interesting part of the part of the campaign.
So even if you lost, the people still get away no matter what.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like this story event happens regardless of the outcome of the mission.
Okay. So that's all the basic mission story for Titanfall 1?
Oh no.
Okay.
It's not too much more. I'll try to be quick.
No worries. Just trying to understand, because since it was an entirely multiplayer game, it feels very weird to have this much story in it.
Well, there's 6 missions, and I ended up having to do like some. So when I first picked up Titanfall 2, it was actually free. Titanfall 1 was actually free on Origin, if you had an Origin account. So I picked it up and I went through as well as I could the story missions. Admittedly, there's actually one I never got to play in person. Between going online, and there's actually a Titanfall story subreddit called Titanfall Story. Between that, I've sort of been able to piece together the different things that happen within the missions. Most of it does come from the in-game text, but if you're actually playing in-game, as Blue was saying earlier, it's really like hard to follow. It might as well not be happening.
Right. Okay.
Whew.
I'm just glad that I wasn't the only one who felt that way.
Yeah, there's whole like IGN articles and whole things that were trying to lead people into Titanfall 2, trying to explain the story to them, and like the majority of the comments are from Titanfall 1 players just being like, "Oh man, I had no idea."
There was a story to this.
So that was fun. So the math of that mission, McAllen has officially joined the militia, and the first thing he does is to encourage them to go the Odyssey. And the Odyssey is a sort of partially wrecked. That's that flagship that was just previously mentioned, and which now the data core has info on an IMC stronghold in Demeter, which Demeter ends up getting mentioned in Titanfall 2 as like a sort of a turning point battle. Or which side really wins this next battle, there's not as much lead up. The militia ends up finding the data, and they're basically building a war chest. They're sort of collecting all the little data and strategy they need to attack this IMC facility on Demeter, because they know it's an important manufacturing facility. Besides of this mission, there's not too much depth in dialogue. You meet the same characters on both sides of the previous mission, and they have as much to say as they did before. It's like, oh man, we need to stop these guys. Like, oh yeah, stop these guys. It's not very informative. The next battle is called Get Baker, and if you're if you're familiar with the Angel City Elite, or even just the campaign mode, he is everyone's favorite drunk.
Okay.
I love it when they just drag him. It's just like, come on.
No, Baker is he's sort of like a wonderkin kind of pilot.
Okay.
If it's life on the frontier or like what's getting to him, the dude is just always at the bottom of a barrel of moonshine. He's always, yeah, like,
And that's where he is when you encounter him in game.
yeah.
And
Sounds drunk in that
is he
He's
like
drunk.
he's fighting with you drunk or like directing the mission drunk?
You're trying to extract him.
Yeah, in this mission, you're trying to extract him, and he is completely tanked.
Awesome. Dragging your drunk uncle around. That sounds awesome.
Pretty much. And it's another attrition style battle. And this is where Vice Admiral Graves sends Blisk and this other guy who you don't really meet beyond this mission, Captain Bracken. And he actually dies in this mission too. Through the match, the IMC carrier Sentinel warps in, and attention shifts to sort of that part of the map. And the militia are instructed to attack the IMC, and the IMC are instructed to defend the Sentinel. That becomes sort of like the focal control point of the mission at that point. But either way, the Sentinel is not like brought down. No matter which side you're playing on in that mission, that battle plays out. But you end up extracting Baker, and you, as Justin said, you kind of like end up dragging him out, and he becomes the next sort of a chess piece to your militia. The next mission is an assault on the IMC flagship, the Sentinel. That it'll be pulling up for repairs, and he's really keen on taking it down. So he hatches a plan to misdirect the IMC with a derelict ship, but Blisk, being sort of the warhound that he is, decides to not bite at that and stays back. So you kind of had this attrition engagement. It's also kind of like Last Titan Standing the way it plays out. Opinion, but that's sort of an ineffectual mission. The next mission is mostly Base Golden. This facility was on a planet with hostile wildlife, and it uses a repulsar tower to repel the animals. And this is just another sort of, you're trying to build a war chest, so you're weakening each position of the IMC to where you can get to the meter, and they can't really repel your attack at that point because they're spread too thin. And it's actually hacking here. The repulsar wave is a feature of all IMC facilities that they set up on these planets in the frontier. So McAllen sends the militia to occupy the base and obtain the data that would allow them to shut down and overload the repulsar towers, which will come in super effectual later. The Blisk and the IMC sort of picked up on that's what their plan was, and they send a team to Golden also. So the two teams meet up, and all heck breaks loose, and a battle ensues. This is a hardpoint match, and in a hardpoint match is sort of like, I guess, zone control. I think I mentioned that earlier. You're trying to control certain, I think, 3 points of the map. And as you get amped with the hard points, you end up occurring more points over time. And it plays out the same no matter who wins. Bish sends the overload codes to the tower you've been fighting to see if they work, and they do. If you're on the IMC side, the cores goes critical, but it's because Blisk did it to be, I don't know, like a jerk.
As he is wont to do.
Justin. I was waiting for the Justin weigh-in.
Oh no, Blisk is your number one Apex South African jerk. He's like every bad guy in District 9.
Oh, my God, that makes more sense. That makes so much sense.
A guy in District 9 just cobbled into one person. And this is going to be like the sort of Apex turning point in the first Titanfall game. The IMC Stronghold is the supplier for the IMC in the region. So this is their fueling depot, their manufacturing depot. It's their like single largest supply base. And it's an all-out major battle on the frontier. Side, you go in via dropship, but the IMC's automatic anti-air guns kind of like shoot you down out of the sky. Heavy casualties on your side trying to go in. So when your pilot comes to, you're sort of you're behind enemy lines, classic pilot position, and you're trying to make the best of the situation. So you might have like some sporadic back you up, but you're really just you're at this crash site. You have a lot of automated artillery against you, and you're trying to make the best of it. But through all of this, it's actually the opening talk of this mission. McAllen sort of comes up in his Titan, and he lays out the plan, and it's a pretty rousing speech. The militia is going to overload the reactor cores by shutting down the cooling vents. And that you do that with the codes that were collected in the earlier mission. And this is another hardpoint control map. So the militia are trying to overload the cores, and the IMC is trying to stop them from shutting them down. And on the militia side, Sarah and Bish get worried about the pace of things on the ground, and Bish suggests that the cores would have to be overloaded manually, adding that even in a Titan, the pilot wouldn't be protected from the radiation. Like, he'd just be burdened with way too many rads. So regardless of who wins, McAllen shows up at the focal point of the map and reaches the core. Sort of gets the drop on him, but he's called off by Graves at like the last second. So McAllen's going in for the core. Blisk has the drop on him, and then he's called off from taking the shot by Vice Admiral Graves due to his proximity to the core. Like, he could overload it and just kill everything. McAllen pleads with Graves to leave the IMC. It reminds him of the aftermath of the Titan War. And it kind of suggests that Graves turned a blind eye and allowed McAllen to make off with the Odyssey in the first place when he ran his mutiny. But as the reactor overloads, both McAllen and Spyglass override their respective codes.
So, Justin, do you remember the end of this mission? What happened with this guy?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. So yeah, the end of this mission, just like Taylor was saying, you're overloading this core, and James McAllen actually is the one who goes in and does it. He kind of pleads with Admiral Graves to kind of pick up his mantle as he's about to bite the big one. And from what I can remember, everyone just kind of bugs out from there, and it just kind of leaves everything kind of open and sets the table a little bit for the conflicts to come in Titanfall 2. I might have completely butchered that.
Okay.
That's how I remember it. I played this mission once, and it was before I had any context. Kind of like Blue was saying, you played it and you were like, wait, this seemed important.
Yeah, he dies, and it's like, someone important just died. I don't know who, but it doesn't seem to affect anything on the battlefield other than, oh, it's time to go. Get to your dropship. Like, that was my memory of this mission.
Ooh, sorry about that, guys. Where did you lose me?
Right as you were talking about Mac and Spyglass overriding their respective codes.
Oh yeah, so it goes up. McAllen basically sacrifices himself to destroy the Demeter facility, or if you're on the militia side, it's because Spyglass sort of overloads it while McAllen is there trying to do it. And then what happens from there is Spyglass orders all of his forces to actually go deeper into the frontier as opposed to like back toward the core systems. And yeah, it's a really odd move. And it's really interesting because subsequently after the mission, Graves ends up defecting in McAllen's place. He sort of gets convinced by McAllen's death move. So Spyglass gets the IMC in that region of space. So his choice to go like deeper into enemy lines is like really odd. It doesn't seem like the wisest choice, but it effectively cuts them off from the inner systems. And it allows the militia, and they now control about 25% of the frontier. So they're like an established like force now.
Okay, so do they literally kind of in some ways go rogue by detaching from the main corporation? Or is the main corporation just this floating city now?
Well, so the main IMC is sort of this. I mean, by all accounts, I would say that they're centralized back in the core system, which would be like our solar system. Mm-hmm. Based on when they're developed, because that's where they were founded all the way back when they were Hammond Engineering. So over that 200 years where they sort of evolved from Hammond Engineering to the IMC, they're just sort of this like sprawling network corporation that kind of has their fingers in all the sinister soups.
Sinister soups.
Giant conglomerate.
Is it sweet and sour soup? Never
Yes.
mind. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop before I go too far.
It's sinister.
Yeah, they have their hands in everything. At least in all the pertinent developments of the game. Their subsidiaries. What used to be Hammond Engineering is now a subsidiary of the IMC called Hammond Robotics, and they're actually who, if you're in multiplayer and you want to watch a little video that explains the perks of a specific Titan in Titanfall 2, Hammond Robotics is who like selling video for you.
Those things are freaking awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
Like the way the degree to which they worked really hard to make it like actually a promotional video that's selling the thing. I remember the very first mission in like Titanfall, at least, where you're like in quote unquote pilot training, and they're like, you should do the, like you're walking, I think it's like you're walking down the hall or something. And it's like they're explaining everything. It was just like that. It was just like this whole, like, you can totally see this being an actual facility where people are being kind of not necessarily indoctrinated, but being trained and being like pushed into this like position of this is what you should want to do, and this is the best choice for you because blah blah blah. It was like I love that level of ingrainment.
No, I wholeheartely agree. It reminded me when I first experienced it, a lot of the Assassin's Creed games.
Yes,
with the sort of which makes sense. Another Ubisoft.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah, the only in-game promos I think that are better are the Vault Tech ones from Fallout.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, I mean, BioShock has some pretty good ones.
Oh, I've missed those.
BioShock is just simply because the humor. But yeah, Fallout's Vault Tech is just, again, the dystopian humor is amazing. But yeah, like, I mean, just the level to which they did those little snippets, to me, is just, I love stuff like that. Like that degree of putting the flavor, like the presentation of the flavor text in the eyes of an inhabitant of the universe really, to me, helps ingrain the player in that, in that world. So I do remember those, even though I never watched like more than like two of them. I was like, oh, I don't really care. But like when I saw it, I was like, this is a really if I did care about this stuff, this would be really cool. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm the type of person that when I play multiplayer like I got some grief. I had some grief over in chat because I was like, yeah, I like the smart pistol because it's a cool concept. I think that concept is an amazing concept. And they're like, "Oh, you're one of those people." I'm like, "Well, to be fair,
Poor buddy.
it's the only gun I had equipped. I didn't buy anything because it's like, what is it? Doesn't Call of Duty have a similar, like, you have to buy weapons to upgrade your loadouts or whatever?
As far as
you
I
can
know,
you can look at people in Call of Duty and they're dead, so it's okay.
Did it
Pluto in chat. It's a jerk weapon. I think the concept, though. Okay, let me just, the concept of the smart pistol to me is fascinating because it reminds me a lot of the Fifth Element, where the gun that Gary Oldman's character, the smart bullets,
the smart
Vex
bullet?
Mythoclast.
Those are cool.
right?
That's
But
the
I mean,
Mythoclast prototype.
the Mythoclast prototype, right? Yeah. But I mean, like, it's totally that gun. Like the way that they link the heads up display with the base AI and the pistol, and then program the bullets to actually track. I'm like, that's just, to me, that's just fascinating.
I think the way it crops up in the campaign of the second game, Titanfall 2, like the way the smart really have a spoiler alert. We'll be going over this later, so I don't feel too bad. But it's you'll have the Titan core right there, right next to your pistol, so you're still uplinked with the Titan core, but the Titan core only exists in your hand now. It's not like in a Titan body, so it's using all its processing power to help you aim.
Oh,
it's kind of like how it's kind of how I mash that together in my head canon there.
So yeah, that to me, that was like the coolest gun, even though it was in 1v1 multiplayers, it was like the most ineffective weapon because you had to hit them like 50 times to actually
Well, yeah, that's the trade-off.
Right. No, yeah. I don't have to be looking at you, but I have to hit you like 25 times in the head to actually kill you.
Speaking of those Hammond Robotics videos, didn't it remind you, I don't know if you've seen it, of like Starship Troopers, like, would you like to know more?
Yeah.
Like, click at the end.
Actually, and Justin I know is going to pick up on this one. I totally get a Starship Trooper-esque vibe with the motion of the mobility in Titanfall.
Oh, jump kits.
The jump kits. I totally get that. That's the feel I get for those. Even though they're not jump kits, but they kind of remind me of that.
Also, when I see the USS James McCallan, I get a very Roger Young feel from it. I don't know why. I just feel like there's probably a special elite group of people on that ship who really, really identify with that name and probably say some sort of poem before they go kill people. So that's the only difference is it's not a bug hunt, man.
It's not well. So yes. Okay, so that brought us to the end of Titanfall, right? So
yeah, that's the end of the first game.
So
which let me ask this real quick. Mm-hmm. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go for it.
So we had the Titan Wars that preceded Titanfall 1.
About 20 years.
Yeah, about 20 years before Titanfall 1. The events of Titanfall 1, were those prior to the Frontier War proper, or are they included in that?
I'd say, like, at this point, the Frontier Wars should be kind of looked at. You know how, like, they have in world history, I guess in our case as Americans, you might have, like, the English, like, 100 Years' War or, like, the 30 Years' War.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's kind of like this continuing sporadic conflict, as opposed to like one grand event like World War II.
Yeah.
More guerrilla-based fighting.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was widely believed that the Battle of Demeter was the beginning point of the Frontier War, or if we're including these military actions in Titanfall 1 in there too.
I I think at least in my head canon, based on like what I've been able to gather, I would definitely say that if you're referring to the Frontier Wars, it would only include like the Titan Wars through the events of Titanfall 1 and Titanfall 2, and probably extending to whatever future content they release.
War without end. I got you.
Pretty much, yeah, constant struggle.
War never changes.
I love it.
Man.
No, go ahead.
Really quick, like the Titanfall 1 plays a little differently than Titanfall 2. So in Titanfall 1, you had only 3 types of Titans, but they were... So like, whereas you could choose like, and if you're familiar with Titanfall 2, like you can pick your pilot's weapon. In Titanfall 1, you could completely customize your loadout of your Titan.
Mm-hmm.
So you only had 3 types. So you had the Atlas, which is the first Titan developed by Hammond. That's sort of your jack of all trades, and it makes sense as being like the first one that's been developed. You have the Ogre, which is your sort of like heavier, very boots on the ground, slower, more heavily armored Titan. So the Strider's a lot more bare bones. I think they're more easily identifiable because they lack the extra armoring on their arms and legs. It just kind of focuses on that sort of center chassis where the pilot sits on the Titan. And there for your super quick movements, but obviously at the cost of hit points and defense. But those are the 3 major types, and actually all 6 Titans in Titanfall 2 will be based off of those sort of like subclasses.
Okay. So with the Titans themselves, I mean, they branch out, you said, into the 6 different types, like Ronin and Torch and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Is there like a direct descendants type? And is there like a reason for it to be developed like that in the second game?
In the second game, this is outside of lore. They were going for much more of a sort of a balanced subtype. So they've, instead of you can customize like its weapon and different loadout, they gave you specific loadouts of each Titan type. So they're all locked in. That's why you have twice as many, I feel like.
Okay.
You have generally 2 Titans are based on each chassis. So based on like the Atlas, you have the Ion and Tone. Based on the Ogre, you have the Scorch and Legion. And then based on the Strider, you have the Ronin and North Star.
I always hear about the how some of the different Titans are considered like Smurfs, I guess. It's not necessarily a technical term, but just weak. Like, not a lot of people play them.
Oh, yeah.
Things that everybody plays.
All right, am I back?
Yeah.
There you are.
Ooh. Where did I cut off?
We were talking about the breakouts of the different types in Titanfall 2, and you had just finished, I think you just finished the whole list of, you went past the Ogre breakdown into, now I can't remember which one you had said. Yeah.
Strider. Oh yeah, so they're all kind of broken down of those 3 sort of archetypes, and it's much more kind of have like an Overwatch feel. Whereas you have like sort of defined mechanics within each Titan as opposed to like customizable options.
Are they as crucial as far as team play as it is in Overwatch, where you have somebody who is literally just your tank and your defender type or whatnot?
More in specific game modes. So like Last Titan Standing or Titan Brawl, I would say that's much more apparent, and you find people like sort of switching around for different team builds. In game modes like Attrition, where you start out as a pilot, I feel like it's a lot more plug and play. You'll just kind of have like a mishmash of everything in each game type.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
getting people to pay attention to team comp is hard enough as it is.
Twitchy shooter.
In any game. And you're forgetting the best one is the Ronin.
The Ronin, yeah, the Ronin is based on the Strider, and he is a big sword bro.
Yes, just a samurai robot.
I kind of view him as Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. If he were a giant robot, I could ride on.
That is a pretty big breaker sword, so I mean, that's probably not a bad one. It's probably not bad.
Different Titans in Titanfall 2 now, or do you want to do it like after we do the Titanfall 2 story?
Yeah, let's summarize the story, and then we can kind of talk odds and ends of the tech at the end. So basically, when we jump in to Titanfall 2, we kind of jump into this this noob, Jack Cooper, kind of being mentored by Captain Lastimosa, who is a grizzled veteran, a pilot extraordinaire with his trusty Vanguard class Titan BT-7247. And you're actually going through the early stages of your pilot training, which even at that early stage is already on an accelerated time frame. Like, he's showing you stuff. I think he mention he's showing you stuff he wouldn't normally be showing you this soon. He didn't
have approval to train you just yet. He was waiting on it, and he kind of decides that he's going to go ahead and do it with you.
Yeah, so he's already jumping the gun and training you, but during your your training, when you're simulating the link with your Titan, the ship that you're on, the USS James McCallan, is actually attacked. It's attacked, and your training session gets cut short, and you're thrown into the thick of it. On what planet is that in the first one? Is it Typhon or is it Demeter?
It's Typhon. Demeter was the turning point battle of the
last. So we're already past Demeter at this stage of the.
Yeah, so like at this point in the story, the militia controls about I think, as we covered a little while ago, like a quarter of the frontier, joining up like left and right from the frontier to help the cause. So their forces have really grown dramatically. And the militia are kind of like an interesting group. I don't know if I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but like they're sort of like a mishmash of like frontiersmen, criminals, and pirates. Like they're like a really interesting group. Like you kind of have like all ends of the D&D spectrum there.
Nice. That sounds like the perfect recipe for disaster.
So don't get too excited, Blue, because this will end in tears.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Maybe that's what you want, but you actually drop on the surface of Typhon, and engage. I mean, these aren't IMC regular forces. These are mercenaries known as Apex Predators, which I guess are they considered? Are they more like mercs at this point, or are they? Both. Yeah,
I would say Apex Predators. If you need a modern equivalent, think like Blackwater.
Okay,
like they sort of work closely with the IMC, but they're not directly related to them.
Yeah, Blisk
James McCallan was completely shot down.
Yeah, Blisk actually mentions, I think, in that scene where Lastimosa gets
bamboozled?
ganged up on. Yeah, he gets ganged up on. It's not fair. But in that scene, I think it's actually Kane or one of the other Apex Predators wants to like play with the body, or and Blisk is like, oh no, we've got we've got work to do. We've got to do a job. We've been hired to do this, and we're going to do it. So yeah, I think you're right. The Blackwater comparison, I think, is probably spot on.
Yeah. So when you're coming in, as you land in that mission, so the James McAllen is like completely cut to pieces. You're on a escape pod when the mission begins, and you come down through like along with the wreckage of the ship, and you are completely surrounded. Like the Typhon is a completely IMC controlled planet. So Jack, and it's actually really interesting at this point. When you're in the VR, you kind of had like pilot abilities. At this point in the mission, like you don't have any of that. So like you can't double jump, you can't like slide, you can't really wall run, you don't have your jump pack, you can't do any of the cool stuff.
Don't have a grenade.
Play this like on higher levels, like this part of the story can be really difficult, especially on master. Like it's like you're trying to make it through, but you like there's nothing that makes you special from any other grunt on the field. One of the parts, this is where I first noticed it. One of the parts of this game I thought was like really, really cool is at least from the militia side, miscellaneous NPC has their own individual name. So like you drop on the ground, there's like PFC Johnson over there, and who like lights up on your screen with his name. And if as you're like as you're running to the left to try and make it away from Titan fire, there's it's really cool. They're all individually named. You can see some of them show up later in different parts of the story. Like it's really cool, and I found it to be like sort of one of those little micro details that makes things more immersive. Yeah, because based on your performance in earlier missions, it can affect like who shows up in later missions, and they don't even show up as like effectual people.
That's awesome.
So would you, if you were to go back over it and start a new game, it would literally change what showed up later, or?
As far as I know, like I don't know if it's planned or if it's specifically affected by your performance, but I definitely noticed like the same names cropping up. And like Lastimosa, he's that's the name of one of the devs. So like they all have like those like little real world connections. So there may be a bit of that like involved. But like PFC Johnson, like you'll see him like a couple missions later.
Okay,
That's
kind of cool.
Like yeah, it was actually
you're not seeing Lastimosa later though.
Oh, spoiler! We're not. Yeah, no. Lastimosa gets totally bamboozled. Like he's fighting one Titan as you're kind of hurt, and when you meet up with him, he's like out of his Titan. He pulls you aside. He's like, "All right." He goes back in BT, and he's trying to fight. He's fighting Kane. That's the Scorch guy you see like facing him. Mm-hmm. And then Richter comes up right up behind him, and we'll introduce all these names as the story goes on. If you're not familiar with who I'm talking about, but like another one of the Apex Predators, Richter comes up like right behind him, and they just start like breaking down BT and shooting up the cockpit there. So it's yeah, he's totally bamboozled. He's getting shot from either side. He's got nowhere to run. It's a totally bad situation, and Lastimosa definitely feels the effects of that.
Hmm. From what Charmed is saying in chat, Kane does not sound like a good guy at all. Sounds like
like he's got some issues.
Yeah, he laughs like a weirdo, and he's got a chili bowl.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Which I had a chili bowl, and that was completely okay when I was 8.
Justin has gone past psychopath.
Yeah.
Is that what? Is that what it was required? Like, because he was saying that Kane collects ears.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like chili bowl equals psychopath, and Justin has grown out of that. What?
I moved past that. I found another way.
Yay! Growth.
We all grow and learn.
So it's at this point in the game, after poor Lastimosa, we actually get knocked out, and then we wake up with some weird space creatures trying to eat us. And who saves us but Lastimosa in BT? He mows them down. And this is the point at which we find out that we are going to be a pilot now, with little to no training.
Little ahead.
Oh, too far?
By like minutes in terms of like you're right in the right area. So like it's we're woken up by Lastimosa after we've been kind of like shot up as we get down to this. I think it's by like a troop transport like you see in the multiplayer. One of those sort of like things that like come down to the ground and like troops walk out. You can kind of blow them back at that, and Lastimosa like pulls you. It's all from first person perspective, so you can't really see like what you're being dragged into, but it just kind of looks like your general like sort of kind of in the middle or wreckage at that point.
Yeah, so this is the point at which you're kind of a spectator and you're just laying there, and you get to see Lastimosa get just blown to bits in BT, and he falls, and then you actually witness, you're mistaken for dead, and you witness a little exchange between Blisk and Kane, and I guess Richter, and and I think Kane actually wants to like collect a trophy from Lastimosa, I believe. I might be wrong on that. And hey, what's up, Tim? And basically Blisk tells him we've got a job to do. We've got to, bug out.
Wants to collect a trophy. That's disturbing.
Yeah, if you ever heard him talk, you'd be like, yeah, this is a complete weirdo.
Ooh, where were you, Justin? Sorry.
I was right at the point where Lastimosa has fallen, and we're kind of just like playing possum, and Blisk and Kane and everyone's just kind of having a conversation in front of you.
It's Richter, and it's one of my favorite lines from Blisk. Richter's is doing like an old Vietnam sort of like cutting off ears.
Yeah, okay, it's Richter, not Kane.
And he's putting them he's like collecting them, and Richter kind of like hops out of his Blisk kind of hops out of his Titan, and he kind of it's one of my favorite lines is like, "Oi, Richter." What? Come on.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. We got a job to do. We can't be mucking about.
Exactly.
Mucking about.
So you as Jack Cooper kind of pass out again after that, and lucky for you, when you wake up the second time, you have some of those feral beasts Justin was talking about picking at your leg. And they're picking at your leg. You're kind of like slowly coming to. Things are looking bad, and BT kind of like shoots them out for you with his last the last bit of energy he can really like expend without failing his core systems. I guess is like the best way to put it. Go up and talk to him. He lets you know that you need to like recharge him.
And he sends you to the store for batteries.
And headlight fluid.
Headlight fluid, yes. And you actually get authorization to be a pilot at this point. Yeah. You go all over the map and collect batteries and come back and put them in BT, and then he scans for other batteries that are viable, and you go get those and bring them back. And then finally, the thing you've been waiting for the whole time since you first popped the game in happens. You're actually going to get in a giant robot and shoot the mans.
Oh yeah.
There's some cool dialogue in between there of, that's IMC saying surrender and you won't be harmed. And then BT saying, I'm pretty sure they're lying. And, there's some cool back and forth, but
there's some cool times too. Like in the middle of that, you kind of get some allusions to the most recent DLC. Like you have the I think as you bring like the second battery back, you have those IMC grunts being like, "Oh man, it's a Vanguard class Titan. Like we can get a promotion or like a lot of money for this." Because at that point in the story, the IMC has no idea about the systems of the Vanguard class. It's completely removed.
I never listened to those guys. I just cloaked and went over and shotgunned them.
I always did the thing where if you like circle out far like to the left, because when you first come on them, they're like just kind of from your point of view to the right of BT. If you circle out all from the other one, when you start shooting at them, I don't know if it's like because of the programming thing, they like turn back to where you were.
Oh, nice.
Part of the net, yeah. It was the funniest thing to me. So you're just like, perp, perp, and then they turn their backs to you. Like, oh, thanks.
Easy mode.
It kinda. But so after you reinitialize BT with all 3 batteries that you collect from the wreckage of the James McAllen, and he sort of updates you on the mission. So because he's now relationized to Jack Cooper, the mission and protocols that Captain Ty Lastimosa have now transfer to him. So his current orders at this point in the story are to meet up with Anderson, Major Anderson, who's actually in the very first mission. You can get an achievement for beating his time on the Gauntlet, which was that VR sort of place Lastimosa took you to sort of test out your abilities in that first opening like training portion of the game. You get a trophy for beating him. You get another one for being on the top 3 on that list, which I have yet to do myself.
Oh yeah, me neither.
Good company, but
Yeah.
but yeah. So it now shifts to you. So your primary mission now it's kind of like a field promotion. Military at all, or you've heard it in like a movie or something like that. It's like an on the spot, like, all right, you're now a pilot. Like, this is what we're doing. Let's go do it.
Justin, go.
So at this point, you move to Rendezvous, which is the next. Which this is one of the parts where BT actually reaffirms your mission parameters or whatever, or your priorities, one of which that is quite paramount is fulfill the mission, which is to rendezvous with, and Lord, who are we rendezvousing with? Is it Graves? I'm trying to remember. I'm trying for the life of me to remember. We have to rendezvous with a high-ranking militia leader, and kind of consolidate there, and then we push forward. Who was that we rendezvoused with? I'm trying to remember. So bad with names. Taylor, who were we after we are able to actually link up with BT there, and we get on the move and kind of pushing towards our mission parameters again? Who's the commander we rendezvous with? Is it Graves?
It's Anderson. So the first guy you're looking for is Anderson, and that's sort of the primary part of the first part of the story. You're searching your way through. That's what Lastimosa's mission would have been. But as you make your way through the sort of like outskirts of this facility that you guys were trying to storm at the beginning of the game, you actually run into Kane. And where's my Kane is an Apex Predator member, and BT comments as he looks up his file, like known drug user. Kind of sounds like a tweaker in the classic sense, if that makes sense. He's kind of like, he seems like one of those guys that has like a shoulder twitch.
Yeah. To take it back to the Fifth Element, he reminds me of Corbin Dallas's neighbor.
Yes.
if you remember him at all, it's just smoke you, and he just Drax. But yes, just complete tweaker.
So as you make your way through the facility, and that kind of introduces you to the this part of the campaign introduces you to the sort of like wall striding mechanics that we talked about earlier. And through IMC personnel, Kane kind of decides to challenge you himself. He shows up with a couple of brute type Titans. They're sort of like an Atlas chassis, and they have rocket salvos. They have a machine gun as their main armament. They're not a Titan that you'll get in multiplayer. Well, not strictly as they end up playing in this part of the game. But he shows up, basically him and two sort of like sub-plebe Titans show up to fight you real quick. You dispatch them easily because he's a tweaker and brutes suck. But after Jack does that, he goes to the sort of wreckage of where Kane was, and he removes his radio unit from his helmet. So now Jack and BT have access to the Apex Predators communications, but the Apex Predators aren't aware of this yet. Like, I don't even think they know that Kane is dead at this point.
Oh
that's
yeah,
kinda
and
cool.
they actually talk about it too. They're like, "Oh, he's probably screwing around," or
So you literally just get kind of a easy in to hear all their plans and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's actually pretty clever the way they do it, because they're very good about not breaking that radio silence that they have on their side. And the whole time as they're making their way through, especially the next part of the game, it's really funny because the next part of the game, I think, is where you're dealing with Ash, that sort of manufacturing plant
Mm-hmm.
that Justin was talking about earlier, and she'll talk to Blisk, but she'll also talk to you through like the PA. So like you get the one side of the conversation, and then you get the other side.
That's kind of hilarious, actually.
It's pretty good.
Kind of like if Gladys was talking crap behind our backs, if Gladys were so tactful to do something like that. GLaDOS or whatever from Portal.
It's actually really funny that you mentioned that. I'll get into it more here in a sec, but Ash is, like I mentioned earlier, a simulacrum. So the idea, she's completely wired into that facility. So she exists both as the robot who's piloting a Titan that you have to face later, as well as like the AI that's in charge of the whole facility's operations while you're going through it.
Okay. So she is a GLaDOS type, archetype almost, without being potato nuts.
She might be a little potato nuts, but yeah.
Okay, so we get the basically the earpiece from Kane. How does that affect the next series of missions?
So once you get the radio unit, it sort of gives you the layout as to where they'll be coming at you as you proceed into the facility with BT. And in the next part of the story, as you make your way into the facility, BT suggests you activate a platform to take like kind of like a shortcut deeper into the facility. You come up to this like wide gap, and he notes that there's a movable platform. He's like, "Hey, why don't you activate that?" But as soon as you do, the sort of like arm from the assembly line comes out and just grabs BT and starts dragging him down the assembly line. And it's really funny, like this whole time through your loading screens for this part, as you follow after him on the platform you activated, it'll say like what BT's doing. So he's like, first order of business, free oneself, like, and then it'll go attempt like 37, like he tries to like blast all the rockets and break the arm. And as you go through the different parts, like the number keeps growing, so I think he hits like 100 before you actually free him.
That's a pretty intense assembly line if it takes 100 rocket salvos to break free of.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those things. I don't think that actually ever ends up freeing him. As I go down here, as I recall, it ends up being the stuff you do throughout the mission that actually get him loose.
Okay.
I constantly feel like BT in that claw, just kicking and flailing about, can't get loose. That's how I feel like in my typical
Absolutely.
day. Just BT, just like continue.
I'm just imagining, like when you see a bug on its back and just everything is kicking. I just imagine him like that, except he's like kind of midair, just kind of going every which direction. Just
Yes.
What starts as as Justin mentioned actually earlier, what starts as like this, as you make your way through the assembly line trying to chase after him, what starts as this just sort of like a run-of-the-mill rectangular slab of concrete, as we all encounter in life, slowly gets added onto by like first it adds like little shrubberies and sort of like foundation outlines, then it adds the walls, then it adds the furniture, then it adds like little cardboard cutouts or mannequins of meant to represent people inside of them as you make your way through this facility. And this is actually it's a really fun part because you're constantly doing like wall running, parkouring, and fighting off like random AI enemies as you make it to different landings while you make your way through. But as you're making it through, BT is, like I said earlier, just constantly struggling, constantly trying to free himself. And then as you make your way through the radio, you can hear Ash communicating with Blisk. And Blisk is trying to like encourage her to not like kind of like play with her food. He's like, like, oi, like just take care of it. And she's like, yeah, okay. And as you make it further through the facility, he starts to get a little more belligerent with her. So when you reach the top of the facility, you're in this sort of specialized dome. Kind of like a Thunderdome. It simulates the weather for the area you just manufactured.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out Ash had actually like already captured some militia grunts, sent them in, and had been sending them into like varying tests. So when she drops you in there by way of like summoning you up through the assembly line, she also re-releases these other militia forces from a room she had in holding just outside the dome to come in and also face this new sort of mishmash. In this case, what she releases are Spectres and Reaper units. And now Reaper units are just kind of like these... if you can imagine the Spectre is about the size of a person.
Mm-hmm.
The Reaper, I would say, is about like 3 to 4 times that size, like taller, wider, completely robotic, and just more dangerous to pilots or persons, while as not so threatening to like a Titan because it's still smaller.
So it's the Terminator.
Terminator, if he had a much squarer body, yes, almost, yeah.
I like think of them as the T-2000 or from RoboCop. Is that the right letter? The butthead. Yeah, the crappy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the thing that really wanted that ooze. It's coming out like clicking for it. Like,
that's how I would see it.
As opposed to like something that's man-sized, maybe like it's definitely like larger than a man, head and shoulders above people. It's definitely an anti-personnel unit.
Quite literally.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's quite a hard level, like especially on higher difficulties, because the little exploding spider bots will seek you out. And doesn't matter what room you go into, you can't even have a moment's peace to even open like an armament chest. You can't really do anything. Like, you just got to stay moving.
Yeah, like no place is safe, only safer.
Yeah, these actually, you'll be in a house and you'll be inside one of these small houses and you'll be trying to open up and see what weapons are in these little chests, and then there'll be a specter behind you inside the house and you'll be like, the door's not that big.
Yeah, like they turn sideways just to come in and kill you.
Uh-huh.
Just kind of fly in horizontally.
Well, it's a really cool thing because like I really enjoyed this sort of whole because why would you have a whole facility just to build this unless like conquering various worlds and training your whole corporate forces to sort of indiscriminately like take over varying landscapes, you know? Like why would you even bother with that whole like assembly line?
Yeah, team building retreat.
Yeah.
It's a danger room is what that place is.
Exactly. Yeah,
This
it's very X-Men danger room.
Yeah. But of course, because we're awesome, what do? We prevail.
Yeah, we so you, Jack Cooper, make it through. All those IMC guys who got sent in with you, they're not so lucky. But after you take out the forces, the doorway, or even if you don't take out the forces, actually, if I recall correctly, the doorway that they were released through remains open, and BT, still struggling and held on by the robotic arm, tells you that that's your best way to escape is to go through where they came from. So like you get just to the other side and you're kind of like, it's kind of like being backstage at this point. Like if
That's
the main
cool. Stage
is the dome, like you're kind of backstage in like the warehousey part of things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very, very cool. So what you do after that is you're sort of trying to make your way back to BT again as Jack Cooper. And Blisk, through your connection through Apex Predator Communications, Blisk is sort of coming over and talking to Ash as to sort of ascertain your situation. She relates that she hasn't destroyed you yet. And so Blisk is just kind of like, stop playing games. You need to, just kill him and get it over with. So she comments that she's just going to blow up the whole plant.
Okay.
To get you, to destroy Jack and BT. And she actually says explicitly, like, you might think this is overkill, and you'd be right.
I like this character.
Oh no, Ash is for as little exposure as I feel like she gets in the overall story. Like she's definitely cool, and she can be if you choose the Vincent Dynamics faction in multiplayer, she's your like multiplayer coach. So like before you drop out of the dropship every time, like she's the one who gives you encouragement. It's actually kind of funny. So yeah, as the reaction. So your plan to meet up with BT again is to overload the plant to release him from the arm, and the reaction caused by overloading that like finally frees BT from this sort of like actuating assembly line arm that he's been trapped in this whole time. And then when you're kind of in like after you've reunited with him, it's not quite another dome. It's actually very similar to a multiplayer map that you play in. But it's kind of like if you had this, it's the facility map. So it's kind of like if you're half in the manufacturing part of the facility that like people might occupy, and half in one of those domes not too dissimilar from where you just were, but it's not at the same thing. Like you don't have the assembly line like feeding up those grounds. That is where you meet Ash.
Ash is a Ronin.
That means she's got a sword.
Yes. I do understand what a Ronin is, Justin.
Oh, okay.
God.
I'm sorry.
God. I've watched Mr. Fruit for the last couple of months playing it. God.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Sorry.
No worries.
Do you know what an actual Ronin is? You probably
yes,
do.
It is a Asian. It's not samurai. Well, it is samurai, but
it's a rogue samurai.
It's a rogue samurai who has gone solo
with no master. Yeah.
Exactly like that.
Just
Real
you gotta
messed
say it like that. Like you're in the Shimada clan.
Yeah.
So, God, I'm just drawing a gigantic blank on this. On this.
So after you
encounter
fight
with
Ash, is this the level you were talking about? That was the Bob the Builder level.
Yes, yeah, that's the whole fight that he just described,
Mhm.
which is pretty much you're cued into this little danger room type scenario, and you fight through all these Reapers, and when you get to the end of it, you kind of break out and get outside of the dome, and that's where you hear that Ash has plans on just blowing up the whole facility, and you confront her and beat her, and then yeah, there you go.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Yeah, after you get into, I forgot I was on push to talk. So after you defeat her in the manufacturing plant, the next mission actually has like one of my favorite mechanics in the game. So you made your way out of the manufacturing facility, and you get your way to the research facility, which is where you're supposed to meet up with Major Anderson.
Okay.
Yes, Justin. Cue time travel.
Cue time travel.
In the burned out remains of what looks like this just sort of like giant research complex, like the sort of generic office buildings, general like sort of advanced laboratory type of place. Jack, as he makes his way towards the facility, he sort of flashes in and out of different times he notices. So like he's walking through this burnt out facility, and all of a sudden the facility is pristine, and there's people who work there just like moving about and having discussions about what they're working on. When these occurrences kind of like suddenly end, he finds himself back in the husk of the facility. So he's a little like weirded out by what's going on. He comments to BT, and BT says that the temporal distortions are showing all over the place as they near the research facility. So Jack decides to push ahead for now and just kind of deal with it. When you arrive, you and BT clear out some aggressive wildlife. These are kind of like, it's hard to, I'm trying to think of another game to compare to them, but they're, I guess a good one might be Borderlands. Some of the beasts that attack you in
Skags.
Yeah, like a lot like Skags. They're very quick, four-legged, sort of like half lizard, half dog things that come at
allergic,
you real aggressively.
Allergic to bullets.
Very allergic to bullets. So as you make your way through that facility, BT is trying to help you find the search for Major Anderson. After you clear it out, he enters the building, but he kind of he finds Major Anderson at sort of the top of the ceiling, but he realizes that Major Anderson is kind of like half out of the ceiling.
What?
Yeah. He comes through and he's like looking at this dude. So like imagine looking at the ceiling and it's like maybe one guy down to his chest with like one arm kind of reaching out.
That's problematic.
Yeah, that is a big problem. So,
I was thinking like Mary Poppins. What's the name of the guy that's laughing and up at the ceiling for a second there?
Laughing it up in the ceiling?
Yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah,
Mary Poppins, it's like
Mary
Uncle
Poppins.
something or
Yeah,
whatever.
Mary Poppins is creepy, so.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
Have you seen?
Thank you,
never mind.
Justin.
Have you seen
That's fine.
the Mary Poppins trailer turned into a horror movie?
No.
It already is one.
And
So
well, all they did was replace it with Hitchcock music, and like they played the exact trailer, and it's Continue. This is my takeaway. We're in a Mary Poppins game now.
All right, digging. So after you make your way into the facility, the parts of him you can see are one of his hands sort of outstretched. You can see his shoulders, you can see his helmet. So you take his helmet off, you get his data unit and you go back to BT for him to reveal the parts of Anderson's mission that you'll now be undertaking because Anderson is dead.
Mhm.
And it basically gives you the briefing from Sarah Briggs, who from the first game is the sort of militia commander, at least for like this like grouping that you're in as Jack Cooper. And basically she says that they detected this huge release of energy on Typhon, the planet that you're now on. And they've been reading temporal disturbances like ever since. She gives Anderson this device that's wrist worn, which it protects you from the shifts in time. So like as you let in, you randomly got blipped in time earlier in the mission. What this wrist device will do is allow you to sync with one time or the other, so you don't get like randomly moved back and forth against your will. And she sends Anderson to investigate the IMC facility. BT informs you that since you're the only pilot left who managed to rendezvous with Anderson, you're now in charge of his mission. So again, another field promotion.
Yay.
Exactly.
I'm also being informed that this is another one of those times that BT shows lack of understanding human-like speech.
Oh, there's a lot of times. When you first come on to Anderson, BT asks if he's alive, and I think one of the options is like he's hanging around.
He's kind of in the middle of something.
There's some good ones, and then my reaction is like several times throughout the game, you have those options to sort of like be like punny to BT, and he totally pulls a Drac from Guardians of the Galaxy and just does not get it.
Yeah,
it's pretty great. So you're in charge now, and this is actually one of the more fun parts of the game. This is the first time BT to get to the part of the building, because you didn't see the device that is given to Anderson based on what was exposed. You have to get to the other part of the building now. So BT elects to he suggests that like maybe I should throw you. And at this point, they decide it's not the best decision. So BT, and it's really funny. Every time he throws something, he does like the Babe Ruth point as to like where it's going to go. And at this point, he throws what's essentially like a power line. Just one of those like wooden power lines you might see on the side of the road. He like just like chucks it like a spear, like a javelin, straight into the top of the building, and Jack rides the cable up to the top of the facility and makes his way back down through the roof. When he makes to the second half of Anderson's body, which is just like an arm and his leg sticking out of the floor from this angle, he removes the glove and takes it on. So now he can like phase back in time through like each point in reality, which effectively are right before the IMC successfully conducted the experiment you're going to find out about here in this mission, and the point you walked in on. So like burnt out or like completely restored.
Mm-hmm. And you actually use that mechanic to traverse this story mission. So like you'll get to portions that are blocked off in one time state, and you'll actually toggle to the other and find that like the wall's broken and you can go through. It's actually really cool.
I was about to say, this sounds like it's your favorite game.
It's
totally
so much fun.
awesome. This is like one of the best parts of a video game.
Yeah, it's almost like trying to fight through, and I was having trouble saying this in chat or expressing this in chat, but it's almost like, imagine if you had two mirror versions of the same map,
Mm-hmm.
and to get through it, they're like only slightly different. So you have to like phase in and out with each part. And so like, I can't get through in this side. Let me go to the other map, and like the floor might be out and you can get across that way.
Or my favorite parts are when you have to choose between two bad choices. So like in one timeline, there's like hostile IMC soldiers shooting at you, and then you're like, oh crap, get out of there, and you flip to the other one and there's a giant beast mauling you, and then you're like
at the elevators
yeah.
Dude, you just throw your grenade in the elevator when the door's open, and then that whole side is like completely clear. You have like a safe
Oh.
space.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, because they're all grouped up in there. The way the AI works is because I think at that point you only have like frag grenades. So if you get like 2 or 3 of them, and I think they open like as many doors. If like as soon as they open the door, you just like chuck a grenade like right in there and maybe start shooting so they don't all like run out. By the time the grenade goes off, that entire thing is just completely done.
Nice. Where were you
Yeah.
when I was doing this?
Aw.
So you kind of traverse through this whole deal and get to the root of this problem, these temporal distortions, and this is actually the machine that they were using to produce this effect, correct?
Yeah, it's called a fold weapon, and it's actually kind of like this is almost like a lot like Borderlands inspired. Like they kind of found this alien technology digging around the planet. Like they don't know all the ins and outs of it just yet, but it's basically they have so much energy that they're able to produce that they're able to fold it in on themselves. That's what allows them to do that's what actually causes the time disturbances. If you have so much energy that you actually have to suppress it into a quantum state, so it's existing in multiple places.
That's cool. I like that.
The climax of this mission is visually just freaking astounding looking. I guess you want to talk about how you actually get there, but yeah.
Well, so after as you make your way through the facility, you're blipping back and forth. You actually look at Martyr. Martyr is the or general, I think he's a general, but basically this guy Martyr. You end up hearing his speech, and he's the guy who's actually, as you come to find out, if you stop and listen to all the different like laptop recordings and stuff throughout this mission, he's the guy who's now currently in charge of the IMC in this quadrant. He's the new vice admiral, and his whole view on mankind is that, and this is where you get the background that mankind's been expanding so fast since they left the core systems. Is we're expanding at such a rate that life is actually cheap. There are so many people that losing some people really means nothing because you have almost an infinite source of people at the other end of the rim at that stage of human expansion in the galaxy. So this whole speech he gives as you make your way through the facility sort of outlines at least like this iteration of the IMC's mindset. And as you end up going to the place where they first sealed that fold weapons core together, and the core is kind of like this geodesic sphere kind of thing that holds the energy in sort of like a singularity. So you make your way through that, and you make your way back outside to BT in the present from the building. You rejoin BT, and you like get inside him. And this is the only point in the game when you're inside BT, you're actually able to like phase back and forth with the time shift, like while you're in your Titan. So you phase back and forth, and as you go in the past to when they first successfully test the weapon, that huge release of energy that first drew the militia to the planet, time starts to distort like really rapidly. So as you rush toward the singularity, for everyone but Jack, time actually stops. So you have this
freaking cool.
You have this sort of like mid-storm vortex where all these like pieces of building are strewn about, but you use that as kind of like this parkour element as you make your way to the center where the fold weapon was centralized. And what you do basically while time is still frozen before the facility goes kaput, you get a scan of the signal so you can track it back in the present. And there's a huge flash of light after you get the scan, and you kind of like, it's not really come to so much as like the next portion of the game is you're like coming to, and not only is BT there, but the data was successfully collected. So the next part of the mission, next part of the game is you got to get this information out to the militia.
Okay. Okay, so you said it was an alien technology. Were they just testing it just to try to see how it worked, or was there some malicious intent behind it?
Oh, you don't have any expressed motive in the game, but based on Martyr's speech and what seemed to be the motif of that facility, it's very easy to surmise that they were clearly trying to weaponize this from the get-go.
Oh, and they call it a weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's
Okay.
like they don't refer to anything as but a fold weapon.
Okay. So you stop that and you come to.
You come to, and then BT basically tells you, like, now that you've completed that portion of Anderson's mission, the following part of the mission is to report back to the militia fleet. So let me see here. Sorry, get my notes up real quick.
No worries. Does anything cool happen since you have that field promotion to Anderson's? What did you say his ranking was?
His rank was major, but the field promotion is not like you become major now. It's more like you're the only one here, so now you have to do it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
He's assistant to the major.
Yeah. So once you reunite with BT and you resolve that the data needs to be sent back to the militia, you make your way over to a nearby communications tower. And once you get there, you kind of find out the militia's been holed up at the substation. They tried to send out a distress signal, like really right before you got there, but they failed kind of miserably. So you enter in the substation, and this is one of, again, like a really cool, like level platforming, like kind of parkouring part of the mission. You make your way through the innards of the substation where they're at to find an arc tool so that you can recharge the tower and reposition the satellite so you can successfully get the signal out. And it's really funny. You find a Marvin unit. It's a MRVN. They're these like little like kind of like sweeper bots throughout the game who are like strictly doing like utilitarian purposes, but their chest has like a smiley face on it. When you take the arc tool from it, it becomes a sad face because now he has no purpose.
Aww. That's really sad.
I just wish people had that so you could know where they are in life.
I wish the sweeper bot had that.
Yeah. Oh, poor sweeper bot.
Well, to be fair, Sweeperbot can communicate much better than a Marvin.
Well,
Marvin
fair.
can't actually like speak English. Like he's just kind of like, rah, 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 rah. like those kind of.
Oh my god, that's amazing. That's actually what I wish they had done with super good advice. Is on the display have like a little smiley emoticon, and then like as it runs out of ammo, have it like shift to like a neutral face, and then like a sad face when it gets empty.
I'm thinking it's all the brows, so like it's like the downward brow with the smile when it starts off, and it slowly rocks outward.
It's like becoming on a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rank your pain?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, okay. I'm gonna try and like because we're actually through most of the part of the game at this point. So
cool.
So you after you make your way through and you make a sad a Marvin bot, which is also funny. The first time I did it, I didn't realize that happened because I just punched him out and took the
oh god.
I need this. Just give it to me.
Yeah, it's total CJ mode. But so you make your way back out, and you're confronted by Richter. Richter being the guy who was cutting off ears earlier in the game. And Richter's like a really kind of like your classic. He reminds me of the bad guys in Die Hard, just sort of like, random German bad guy.
He's like Dolph Lundgren in Universal Soldier.
Very much so. He kind of comes in like, Das ist Richter. But So you battle him, you dispatch him, and then it comes time to parkour the tower, and you make your way up the this communication satellite with your arc tool. Or actually, I got it backwards. You do this first before you battle Richter. I apologize, but you make your way up there. You battle through grunt units and specter units, and Richter actually comments when they request for backup, like that it's odd that they haven't killed you yet. Basically, he's like, "Really, you need more backup?" Like, okay. And he sends them through. You reposition the satellite. When you come back down before you're able to send the message, that's when you fight Richter. And as you take him down, this is actually funny. This is the first time I got the pull off an execution in the campaign trophy. And Richter gets very vocal when you put him down like that. And an execution is basically after you deplete the health points of a Titan, they go into what's called doomed mode. So it's like they have another health bar. It's very weak and it's striped like a hazard tape.
Mm-hmm.
And if you melee a Titan from another Titan while they're like that, you'll perform like an execution, like what you see in a lot of the videos. And when you're doing it to him, he's just like, he is screaming bloody murder. He is not trying to have any of it. You put him down. You put him down real good. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. So after you put him down, you guys successfully send out the message, and you kind of like cut away. So when you come back, you're back at the facility with other militia forces, and you meet up with Sarah Briggs. And when she first meets up with you, she sort of suggests that you're going to be reassigned because at this point, when she looks up your record, you were Jack Cooper, rifleman. I think he was a 3rd class, which I think is the lowest one. But at this point, BT actually sticks up for you. He's like, no, I want to stay with Jack because we've been performing at, I think he says like 97% like efficiency.
Wow.
So, yeah, you guys are like really meshing well. I think you're actually meshing better than he did with Last Amosa, but I don't have those numbers. based on his reaction. So the you cut away again, and you're in a dropship with BT, and you can see Sarah Briggs walking through. Basically, the point at this point is you guys are trying to track down the fold weapon before they get to use it while it's still on Typhon. And as she's giving her speech, she actually has her chassis up. And this is like what I was talking about earlier. Like as she gestures, like her Titan gestures, like with her in unison. Mm-hmm. Just sort of like really as a testament to the neural link that's going on there. Like it's moving with her body as it is her body. And you guys go after you find out that the IMC are currently transporting the fold weapon. So you guys are like scrambling to get after it as fast as you can. The next part of the game is what a lot of people find one of the more difficult parts of the game. But as you're chasing after the ship that's it's actually kind of like a fleet that's carrying the fold weapon, they're fighting back, and your carrier gets shot down. So Jack Cooper and BT jump out and land on the back of a carrier. I believe it's by that's just a random character, and then Baker from the Angel City Elite, who you rescued in the first game, shows up, and he helps formulate a plan with BT to get you to where you need to be. So the first thing you and BT do is get on his ship, and he repositions you. And then BT opts to throw you this time. He's like, I'm actually going to try to throw you. And it's really funny. So along with Baker, this group called the 6-4 come in. And they're one of the factions in multiplayer. They're sort of like not quite mercenaries, but they work with the militia mostly. But they're kind of their own group. Maybe like a faction, you might say. And they call it a fastball special, which is a total reference to the X-Men if I ever heard one. Where one of them were like giant mutants, like chucks Wolverine in someone's direction.
Doesn't Colossus? Colossus does that.
Yes, he is one of the candidates. I want to say Beast also did it.
Yeah, I could see Beast do it, but yeah, I remember Colossus doing it like multiple times. God,
Yeah.
I love that particular combo.
So they chuck you on the character or on the ship that's carrying the fold weapon, and you fight your way through. And basically, what you got to do is take out these anti-air installments that are along the ship. So Jack makes his way through. There's an optional thing of activating specters on your side. You're also met up with other militia pilots as you make your way through. So the 6-4 join you. You guys deactivate all the guns and you make your way toward the bridge. As you make your way toward the bridge, the 6-4 like shoot out the window, but it's actually a really funny point in the game because especially as you play on higher level difficulties where your ability to die is much easier, if you stand too close to the glass when they shoot it out, you could actually die. So it's just like, get ready, Jack. We're going to show you how the 6-4 do it. And then you die when they shoot out the glass and like the battle starts. It shouldn't happen it shouldn't happen, but it definitely happened to me when I was playing through on hard my first time. I was like, oh no, let me go down the stairs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So after you make your way through to the bridge with the 6-4, you guys successfully take over the ship, and you hack the controls with your hacking knife. And the hacking knife is pretty cool. I don't know if I went over this, but it's basically like it has like a joystick handle. So when you go in, you pull the trigger, it starts to hack the things and hack the systems. And you reposition the carrier behind the lead carrier because that's the last thing you have to take down to completely have control of the ship. As you reposition, you do so. You rejoin BT on the outside of the thing, and you're confronted by Viper. Viper has been the guy who's been flying around this whole mission, kind of like shooting up and plugging things in to sort of halt the militia advance. And after now he's confronting you. So he's in a North Star, which is the most like aerial and like rocket sort of prone. It's supposed to be like the long distance Titan. You have a very tough fight with him and a couple other Titans who land on the hull of the ship. Now, when his Titan goes down, you're actually thrown from BT because you think he's down, and BT's going to fastball special you over to the command ship again. But he shows up as BT's about to throw you. He comes back from the ground below the ship that you were on, knocks you away from BT. And while he's struggling with BT actually rips open his chassis and tells you to take a sniper shot. It's one of the coolest like boss ends in the game because BT's like ripped open the chassis of his robot and you have to like shoot the pilot on the inside to save BT. It's a really cool, like kind of like heart pounding moment in the game.
Nice.
Once you take out Viper, you load back up into BT, and you go over to that command, and you go back down into the ship that you've already conquered, as opposed to throwing you over to the command ship to recover the fold weapon. As you get to the fold weapon, you're kind of in the burning carrier. You try to retrieve the core before it crashes, but as it gets loaded into BT's chassis and you try to exit the ship, the ship's kind of coming down around you, and BT chooses to shield Jack, and Jack asks him what he's doing, and BT says Protocol 3, like protect the pilot. So like he just kind of like human, or in this case robot, shields you as you go down and crash, and then you kind of like fade to white.
So he's not actually sacrificing himself necessarily, is he?
I would say his intent is everything he's doing is like, I don't think he hopes to sacrifice himself because he has to uphold the mission, but he's putting himself in a position to where like if push came to shove, he would end up sacrificing himself to protect you, Jack Cooper.
Right. Interesting. I just didn't know if there was like an emotional attachment or if it literally was just following the laws that was written into the coding.
It's really interesting. So like BT kind of has that, at least as I remember it in Vanilla Destiny, sort of that Peter Dinklage quality of being like robotic in his delivery.
Mm-hmm.
He's much better fleshed out. I'll admit that right off the bat. But he kind of you find him like as like a caring sort of like he's like a kid brother who always has your back kind of thing by the end of the story. So like you definitely start to realize he's looking out for you after losing Lastimosa. And when he says like another pilot, like you don't even know if he means like Lastimosa was the only pilot he'd lost or if he'd lost like someone else before that.
Okay.
That's a good point.
So when you come to where are we at here? Right when you come.
Here's a question for you, Justin, while Taylor's looking for that. Is the phase shift a result? Okay, you got that during one of the missions. Do you get that during the mission where you're going through the chrono... Well, I want to say the chronometer, where they're doing the time folding and stuff like that? Or is that in a different mission?
No, that's where you first encounter it. It's really more of an anomaly you encounter, and then you get the little bracelet that helps you control it.
Okay.
Exactly.
So you're actually just controlling a phenomenon that was happening already, with whether you control it or not.
Exactly. Yeah. So think of if like the two time periods because of that bomb are sort of encroaching in on one another. Sort of think of what the bracelet, sort of like the glove, allows you to do is sync yourself with one time or the other. You're not sort of being like pulled between both.
Right. I just didn't know if it would like the phase shift mobility perk that you can choose when you're in the multiplayer. I didn't know if it came from this or not.
They're similar, but they function very differently. So in multiplayer, what the phase shift allows you to do is you kind of dephase with the rest of the game, and you have an allotted time where you can like move around in different fashions.
Right.
So like if like I want to run past you or something like that. Whereas in this part of the game, it's like shifting you between the two different times. So you could be safe in one map and be totally surrounded in another. Whereas in multiplayer, what it allows you to do is effectively kind of like disappear from in-game, like no one can track you or shoot you. And then allows you to like rephase into the multiplayer map. But like you always see the same enemies and layout.
You're still in the same time stream. You're just
exactly
a part of it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry I phased out there for a second. I forgot I had push to talk on.
No worries.
So we got so after you leave the facility, Jack wakes up and Blisk is arguing with Martyr, and you see BT sort of hanging. His chassis at this point I think is like one arm, and his like shoulder weapons, like he's been blown to bits protecting Jack in the crash. And Blisk and Sloan, the last member of the Apex Predators, whom you haven't faced yet, are sitting there and they're talking with Martyr over radio. And Martyr's basically saying, like, you need to get the Arc out of BT right now because it's still sitting in his chassis. So what Blisk decides to do is, at first he starts to kind of like torture BT, and BT is just sort of resisting, just giving him his service number, all that stuff. And then he turns, he's like, well, okay, I know your protocols. And he starts turning it on Jack. And so what BT does, and I think this is very clever, is he just acts like he can't see his pilot, therefore he doesn't have to follow those protocols.
Oh, God. Just look away.
Yeah, well, he's just like his sort of like one optical unit like narrows, like he's squinting, and he's like can't discern pilot.
Oh God!
So he doesn't have to follow Protocol 3. So
nice.
So Blisk lifts Jack up and like drags him over to where BT is, and then Jack sort of gets a message in his helmet from BT saying like "trust me," and BT says he discerns the pilot. He opens up his chassis, and then as they remove the arc, and Sloan and Blisk start to get away, BT then starts opening attack on everyone while they're sort of blinded by the initial radiance of the fold weapon. So he kills the grunts that have Jack and like kind of knocks him back, sort of reminiscent to the first game.
Mm-hmm.
Or the first opening mission of this game, sorry. And when Jack comes to, it kind of looks like BT's dead. And Jack rushes over and he pulls the core from BT. So that's sort of like eye unit you see on the BT Titan. If you look at the game art, that's sort of like rectangular unit where the eye is housed. He pulls that completely off. He opens it up. There's a smart pistol in there, and there's another data knife. And then lastly, he pulls out the BT core. And that's the part of the game where you get to run through with the smart pistol right after that. So it's actually like a really, really fun part.
Yeah.
Ugh. So yeah, you make your way through the ship that you're on, or are you at a facility at this point? I think it's a facility. Anyway, you make your way through with the smart pistol, and this is like one of the most like you're in an action movie type things, because with the pistol doing the auto aiming, that's where you can get all the achievements, like kill 3 guys while you're skating across the wall or like sliding through the floor, and all that. It's a lot of fun. As you make your way back to the main portion of the facility where they're going to be launching the fold weapon, you remake contact with Sarah Briggs, and they send you a new chassis for BT. So they send you this like silver Vanguard chassis that doesn't have a core loaded into it. You reload BT and get back in the chassis. And you continue your pursuit. So you fight your way through some waves of Titans, and you make your way toward the fold weapon. And as you get there, you see Sloan, the last member of the Apex Predators, along with Blisk, loading the fold weapon into, I guess you would say, like loading it into the barrel of a gun. It's like they're loading it into a weapon that's going to fire it at the planet they're planning on using it on, and releasing like a huge amount of energy. As they're loading it in, they see you approach, and Sloan opts to take you on herself. And this is the last boss fight in the game. So
is she okay? Sloan, male, female?
It's a female. She's in an ion type Titan, which is sort of like if you ever saw the movie Iron Giant, just think lasers everywhere, like it's that type of guy. You fight her, and it's honestly, at least in my view, not as tough as the Viper fight that he did, because he's flying all over the air. He's like impossible to hit, especially at higher difficulties.
Okay, so you fight Sloan. She's the last boss battle.
Yeah, she's the last boss battle. After you defeat her, Blisk, or as you approach to defeat her, Blisk is informed by Martyr that his job is done because he loaded the arc into the fold weapon into the arc. And he basically tells Sloan like she can kill you if she wants and salvage the rest. She's like, there's not going to be any salvage. So you fight Sloan. Jack and BT are able to defeat her, and they rip the arc out of the fold weapon, but it's already begun to power up, so they just missed their chance. The arc weapon it kind of like backlashes at them, and they find themselves on the ground with Blisk over them. And Blisk is while he's leaning over says, like, lucky for you, I don't kill unless I'm paid to do it. So he kind of like gives off this like almost like lawful evil kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he would have no compunction killing you, but he gets nothing out of it immediately. So there's no point. You're not worth his time. As BT recovers from that message, he climbs onto the arc weapon, and he surmises that they can use the arc weapon to launch themselves into the core to sort of sabotage it from launching at, I think they find out it's planning to launch at the militia homeworld. So I believe that's at like Homestead, another planet that's in the multiplayer maps. So as they go in, BT climbs into the barrel. He and Jack go back and forth about like what's going to go on. So BT's like his AI is kind of scrambling. So it goes protocol 1, establish a link. It has a link with you. It goes protocol 2. That's when it climbs into the thing to uphold the mission. And as you go in midair, protocol 3 finally blips up and it says protect the pilot. So right after Jack ends up saying, I'm not going anywhere this time, BT it's kind of like a thank you kind of thing. He tells Jack to trust him. He opens up his chassis, pulls Jack out and says protocol 3, protect the pilot, and hurls Jack back at the dropship where Sarah and Baker are, as he goes into the arc core that's going off. So it's actually one of the more like heart-wrenching things of the game. He's kind of like your buddy. He's been through this and all this, and then he's like choosing not to sacrifice you with himself as he goes out and completes the mission.
Mm-hmm.
So as that goes off, as he enters in the sort of like singularity that's occurring through the huge release of energy of the fold weapon, all these things that Jack has to kind of like escape to it to make complete his path to the dropship. So it's you're going through this sort of like a time tornado. So like things are spinning real fast, but then they slow down for a second, like pieces of debris, and you kind of parkour your way through it. And they also crash into each other as you try to make your way through. So you coordinate with Sarah, and then you jump at the last second, and Baker swoop in for Sarah to pull you into the side of the ship to retrieve Jack. They quickly make their escape, and this explosion that BT was able to halt from being launched ends up tearing Typhon like in half. Like geologically, like everything's ripped up into the atmosphere and all that. And that is that's the end of the campaign. After that, you go through the credits, and you get a voiceover from Jack that about the aftermath. So Jack is going to be reassigned to the Marauder Corps under Sarah Briggs. He's going to be kept as a pilot, and the militia now control a larger expanse of space. Now that they've taken and destroyed the fold weapon that the IMC were developing. So Jack is in the process. He's going to be shipped out to get reassigned and reconnected to a new Titan. And at the end of it, he sort of comments that he really liked the first one to begin with. Mm-hmm. And it's really funny. Like right as the credits sort of go out, you see this flashing in his helmet that sort of, to some, alludes that maybe BT was able to transfer himself into the helmet and didn't quite like blow up in the explosion.
That would be cool. Continuing on a little bit more.
I hope so. But yeah, the ships pull out to Harmony. That was the map I was trying to remember a second ago. Harmony is the militia home planet, sort of base of operations thing. And as they pull into there, you see like a huge mass of other ships. So at the beginning of the game, they note that people were joining up left and right. I would say at this point in the game, they're really amassing their forces.
Where do you think the next Titanfall, and I'm assuming they're making another one with as popular as Titanfall 2 was, but where do you think they could take the story next?
Well, I think there's plenty of open ground to continue the story of Jack and BT. And as I was saying before we recorded, this game's story is a lot less universe explanatory, so much as it is kind of like if you're familiar with like I said to the guys here before, but you guys listening, the most recent Judge Dredd movie, I think it's like The Tower or something like that. Like, it's very episodic. So I think there's plenty of room in the next installment to continue sort of the story of Jack and BT, should they decide he survived through Jack's helmet, and sort of explore the conflict between the IMC and the militia.
Cool. Justin, do you have anything else that you could think of to add to this?
I think that's pretty fair. I mean, I think that pretty well summarizes it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't have done it any better myself. That's why I didn't.
No, it's one of those things. The story of this game, it's definitely there if you look for it, but it's not. With the exception of the campaign mode in Titanfall 2, as far as like the establishment of the world, like that stuff's a little harder to come by. But the character development and the people you get attached to in the campaign of the second game, I definitely think will carry over into the third.
Yeah, I would almost liken the rift between the story they're developing with the story mode to the expanded stuff in the universe, kind of like the IMC to the Frontier. Like, there's a big gulf between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really, these aren't things that it's really easy to get at, but they're there.
Well, what is it? They just released a new Titan for the multiplayer mode. It's called the Monarch. And
Yes.
the lore behind it goes that the IMC, after the destruction of Typhon, recovered like bits and pieces from a couple Vanguard class Titans and sort of reverse engineered the process. So it's like when you play it in multiplayer, it is not like you're playing BT, but it's very similar to some of those builds that you can only get in the campaign mode. It's a lot of fun.
Well, yeah. Whew. For a game with no story, we sure did make a meal out of it.
I know I started to feel bad. Sorry, guys.
No, do
No,
not.
not at all. And like you said, I mean, I know a lot of people are going to probably be like, but that doesn't really explain the universe. But I think it does tie into what you were saying, is that the presentation of the universe is more episodic. So, that's like trying to, when the very first Assassin's Creed 2 iteration came out, right? It'd be like trying to explain Ezio's story without getting into the details of the episodes of Ezio's story. Like, you can't do it. You couldn't explain it. You have to explain the episodes in order to, to understand the world. And I think it's a long game plan, which is actually a really good one, right? Yeah, and Pluto in chat right now, we're 2 episodes into maybe a 4 or 5 episode season.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think it, given the game type that Titanfall is, I don't think having a conversation of this breadth and this, length, I think is absolutely necessary, even for a basic introduction. And the problem here is, like, obviously there's 2 games, so we're trying to summarize 2 full games, and whereas Titanfall didn't have a whole lot of story, but there was a lot of information. It just was buried. It was buried in a very Destiny-like situation.
Yeah, it was yeah, well, I mean, but it didn't have the benefit of like a grimoire. It's just kind of like, you got to figure this out.
yeah. That's what. Yeah, it's like it's vanilla Destiny without the grimoire. Which, oh my gosh,
That's a nightmare.
No wonder I was so frustrated with Titanfall.
I need to sleep tonight. Quit it, Blue.
Well, okay. Well, let's run to shout outs real quick, and then we'll get out of here. So, Taylor, why don't you lead the way for what shout outs do you have for us?
I would love to give a shout out to the Titanfall subreddit, our Titanfall story, which helped me kind of flesh out some of the bits I was missing from Titanfall 1. And I want to give a big shout out to Charm Pluto, who really helped me carry the chat while we were talking about Titanfall lore over the last month. Couldn't have done without you, buddy.
Nice,
Yay,
nice. And and you said that's Titanfall story and Titanfall, or just Titanfall story subreddits?
So there's the Titanfall subreddit, and then there's Titanfall story.
Okay.
Which those are sort of more like lore nerds. It doesn't get as much traction, but those guys are definitely doing a lot of work, and they definitely help me out with their various posts.
Cool. We'll be sure to link both of those. I just wanted to make sure I got the right subreddits. There's so many subreddits.
So many.
It's Green, how about you? What are your shout outs?
Well, my shout-outs are first off to Taylor, and as a big thank you for coming in and kind of... so like I said, I only have ever watched Mr. Fruit play the game, and he's kind of mentioned a few things every once in a while, but you never get a story because it's multiplayer that he plays. And so I never really understood anything at all about Titanfall, so it's nice to have somebody come in here and explain what's going on rather than just guys with big mechs playing robots, because that's what it feels like from an outside perspective a little bit without knowing any story. So thank you for coming in for that. I like my Rock'em Sock'em robots, but I want to know why.
Why they rock them?
Why do they rock the Sock'em?
Exactly. So thank you for coming in and doing that. It helps give a lot of perspective to what is actually going on in the game.
Well, that's very sweet. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then Justin.
What do you think, Justin?
Yes. Just quick, uncharacteristically quick one from me. Big shout out to Taylor for being here and helping me remember why I shot all those mans. It's nice to know that I was justified. Big shout out to my clan who kind of helped me get my remaining 2 characters to 400 over the weekend. I now have a 400 Hunter, Warlock, and Titan. I cheated, but I've got them.
How did you cheat?
I pretty much the Warlock went from 97 light to 400 light in a day and a half.
Ooh, someone did a raid with buddies.
Yeah, and it was also a Spark of Light situation. She was a level 2 when we started, and then the Titan had been played quite extensively, and it was just a matter of moving things over and getting extra pieces at 400. So yeah, it was like 6 hours of playtime to get 2 400 characters, which was pretty good.
Yeah,
but
pretty good.
Big shout out to I think actually Cabals to the Wall and Trigger X Blade for hopping in and helping me finish a raid and do some other things to get those characters to 400. So it was kind of a meaningless milestone, but I kind of wanted it before D2 dropped. So
yeah. Nice.
And
all right.
Those are my shout outs.
Cool. Well, I wanted to give a real quick shout out. We got a couple new iTunes reviews in, and I just really appreciate the feedback that we're getting. We also got a couple emails from our new website. We do have a streamlined contact form on the website, which hopefully will make it easier for you guys to get a hold of us. And we've gotten a couple of them in there. So just really appreciate the feedback that we're getting about that. If you have any comments or, questions about how we structured something on the website, please give us feedback on that, because, it's a newer site, so it is very malleable. If we need to change something or move something else around, we can totally do that at this point. So give us feedback on that. Let us know how that all is working out for you guys, and we will see you guys tomorrow night. If you're listening to the podcast, we will talk to you 24 hours after this one probably drops. So Guys, have a great night. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Links to all our other sites can also be found with our episode archives over on www.focusfirechat.com. Thank you again, Taylor, for jumping into the chat. We really appreciate having you, and I'll be sure to get links to you up on our show notes for anyone who wants to continue chatting with you. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any feedback or questions for our team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback on iTunes or through email as well. Remember that we try to stream a recap of the month-long Extra Lore conversations in the first week of each month, but if we do have any variations, such as we do next month, we will always make sure to let everyone know through our Twitter account at FocusFireChat. That variation for next month is going to be due to the Guardian Con event at the first of the month, so we will be recording the second week instead of the first week. Also, be sure to check out our partner podcasts within the Guardian Radio Network over on theguardiansofdestiny.com. So, until next time, focus your fire, and may your light shine bright.